I am here with the great Dr. Garrett Ryan from Told in Stone, which is one of my favourite YouTube channels. Absolutely, just really interesting look into mostly the Greek and Roman worlds. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself, Garrett.
No, that's fantastic, actually. Thanks so much for inviting me, Pete. I really appreciate it, and it's a real pleasure to be able to meet hopefully a new audience through this live stream.
Awesome. I believe you've just got back from Greece. Am I right?
That's right. I was there for 3.5 weeks, leading a tour for part of that. I do these group tours sometimes for Told Zone subscribers, but also filming for my small history channel, my travel channel rather, called Scenic Routes of the Past. So I spent about 3 of those weeks frantically shuttling around Greece in a series of rental cars, exploring every heap of rubble with a classical pedigree that I could find. And it had been some years since I was in southern Greece, so it was nice to get reacquainted with some of these sites and see some others for the first time.
Amazing. And that channel, Scenic Routes to the Past, big fan. I like that you go to the lesser known sites because that's what really gets me going. It's when you're there and you're alone, there's nobody else
Hmm.
there. There's sometimes not a huge amount to see above ground, but we've got the stories of the places, and yeah, we can think about what was going on there, who lived there. Mm. Mm. It's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting. Um,
Yeah, I love that
so we
feeling.
so we've each assembled a little list of some of our favourite places to visit in Greece. Um, I think it's an interesting little list. I've gone outside Greece for some of mine as well, because I think it's very important to remember that the Hellenistic world, it stretched far beyond the modern boundaries of states that we have today. So Turkey, all the way far to the east and far to the west, all these different
Hmm.
lands that we wouldn't necessarily associate with Greece today. They were all Greek at one time or another, or at least partly Greek anyway. Um, where else have you visited? You've been to Turkey and all sorts of other places, I think, haven't you?
I have. Actually, Turkey is my favorite country in the sense that I spent the most time there. When I was doing my
It's one of
PhD,
mine as well, for sure.
oh, there's just so much.
Mm.
Doing my PhD, my research was focused on what's now Western Turkey, the Roman province of Asia, the western third or so of Turkey. And so I spent many months there exploring ruins, talking to archaeologists, and I led a number of tours there as well, which has given me more excuses to explore that wonderful place. So there, of course, Italy as well, and various corners of Europe that the Romans frequented. But I think I have a special place in my heart for both Greece and Turkey.
Amazing, amazing. So, what was your PhD focusing on?
Yes, it was Greek and Roman history, but I was really always a Roman historian. My thesis topic was all about how architecture, public architecture, framed the interactions of local notables, local elites, and Roman officials. So, how cityscapes are part of the dialogue between local elites and Roman power, in other words. And I focused on Roman governors who travel around these different cities to try cases, their assize courts, and how these often happen in the same settings, on the agora, for example, or in the theater. And these settings are kind of conditioning what the governor can say and do when he comes to these places. So even though Rome has this immense amount of power. You have the legions, you have, the tremendous ideological weight of Roman might. These humble cities can kind of shape what is said and done through their buildings. That at least was my contention. I don't know if anyone believed me, but I spent some years doing that research and eventually writing a monograph, which is also, I think, totally unread, all about this sort of architecture
Oh,
as a
as
language of power.
as they often are. So
Yes.
your PhD was turned into a book then.
Yes. So after I finished, I did
Amazing.
make a monograph out of it, published it 4 years ago. And as I said, I think it's languished unread ever since then, but it does exist. So it gives me comfort.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Good on
Oh,
you.
yeah.
Good on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, very cool. Very cool. Um, well, I don't know. As you're my guest, we'll start with you. I think.
Sure.
Which of these? What have I called them? I've called them wonders of the Hellenistic world. I think.
Ah,
Which
yes.
of these wonders shall we begin with?
All
No
right.
pressure on
No,
these
no, of
sites.
course.
I'm calling them wonders.
Yeah, this first one I think has to, it aspires to a wonder status, but it has to work for it a bit.
Yeah.
To be honest, I had totally forgotten until this morning that I was going to assemble 5 sites. And so I looked back to my recent sites, all in Greece, for my contingent. So let's begin with the oldest of them, which is Gla, the Mycenaean Necropolis or fortress of Gla, not too far from
Oh,
Thebes. And
such a great site.
I know that you have been there. You did a video on the site, I believe.
I did. Yeah, I just did a video on Glar. Um,
Um,
oh, it's incredible, incredible place. I mean, speaking of being alone at the site, I mean, I don't know.
yes.
Were you alone there when you visited?
Almost. They're doing some work now on the
Yeah.
main gate. They're restoring it. So there was a small group of workmen almost a
Oh wow.
kilometer away who were kind of setting stones back up in their original places. But where I was, on the other side of
Oh,
the
incredible.
fortress, it was just me and the goats.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not, to be honest, at first glance, the most prepossessing sight. You drive across the drained basin of Lake Copaeus, which used to be, as you know, this large marshy area that
Mm,
in winter would become the largest lake in central Greece.
mm.
The Greeks and Romans loved the eels they caught there; they were a delicacy. The reeds on its shores became flutes, and so it had this part in the local economy. But it was, for the most part, this big kind of malarial swamp for most of the year until the Mycenaeans drained it, which again is in your video. But they found a way to channel all the drainage from the local hills into these katabothroi, these sinkholes on the edges of the lake, and turned it into what it is now, which is very rich agricultural land. Of course, after the Mycenaean civilization collapsed, it became a swamp again. It was such for the Greeks and Romans. But anyway, Gla was built apparently to oversee this massive drainage network. And I think, and I might be behind in the latest research on this, we aren't totally sure what its purpose was. If it was just safeguarding these drainage works, if it was an administrative center. It seems, we think, to have been subordinate to the Mycenaean center at Orchomenos, kind of near Thebes. But in any case, it's the biggest Mycenaean citadel that we now have. I think the walls are something like a mile and a half in circumference. And like the walls of Mycenaean Tiryns, which are much more famous, they're gigantic. They're 15 to 20 feet thick. They're made of these 2 to 3 ton hunks of rock in this fine cyclopean style. And the sheer scale of the site. So I have the picture you now have on screen is looking at the walls from above, and they've all collapsed maybe a third of their original height, but you can see this sheer width of the walls.
They're big.
They're
They
real
are
big.
absolutely massive. It's
Yeah,
difficult to even get a sense of the scale, but even compared to Mycenae itself, it's much bigger.
it is. It just keeps
Much
going.
bigger. Yeah.
And because they're working on the main gate, I rather foolishly decided to clamber up from the base of the hills where there was no gate. And I was given a first-hand lesson in how hard they would be to storm, both because there's
Yeah.
now, masses of brambles everywhere, which, impaled me in 15 places, and
Absolutely.
because there's the cliff face and the walls themselves, which are, gigantic. Uh, and so, yes, I stormed Gla as far as I could.
But you
Um,
successfully made it.
I did. I have that feather in my cap
Yeah.
now, I guess. And
Yeah.
as far as we know, it
Nice.
was not
Nice.
stormed in the Bronze Age. So, take that,
Yeah.
our
Yeah. Yeah.
Bronze
Absolutely.
Age
Absolutely.
forebears.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah. No. It's baffling. Just not just because of the sheer scale of the place, but for me,
mhm.
it's baffling that it doesn't get more tourists.
Yes,
It really surprises me because it's a really impressive place, at least to me anyway.
it
Um,
is. And I know you went to Tiryns as well on one of your trips to
yes,
Greece. And you probably had a similar
yes,
experience where Mycenae is swarmed. You can't get away from tourists at Mycenae. But you go to
yes.
Tiryns, which is, I think, almost as impressive. And you're almost alone often, or even alone.
So I don't know. Tiryns was maybe it was a weird time when I went, but it was quite busy.
Oh, yeah, unlucky, I guess.
It was doing well. Yeah, no, they had quite a few people. They were doing some work as well. Some archaeologists were.
Mhm.
What were they doing? They were working on the upper citadel because Tiryns is sort of divided
Yes.
into two parts. They were on the upper citadel, and they were. I think they were doing lidar or something.
Really?
Can't really remember. Yeah.
Yeah, there's
But
so much
yeah,
to be
they were.
discovered there, I think. I was there with my group actually just last week,
Yeah.
and
Oh, amazing.
which was really great. And we were the only ones there. I maybe got lucky again. And the weather was kind of
Fantastic.
unpleasant. It was, a typical October in Greece where it was cloudy and kind of stormy. But we
It's the
had
best time to
still.
go.
It
It really
is.
is. Well, I think anyway.
Yeah.
Those shoulder seasons, sort of
Yeah,
April,
that in
May.
spring, exactly.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Because you get the wildflowers in May
Hmm.
and in the spring, but sometimes I found anyway, some of the sites, they've not had their maintenance yet. They've not been,
Right.
the vegetation hasn't been chopped back, so they're a little bit almost difficult to see the whole thing. Whereas in October, everything's been burned off by the summer sun. So you get a really nice, it looks like this. You get the full visibility of everything.
Yeah, there was a sort of almost a biblical desolation about the site, to be honest, when I was
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
because it is in the middle of this vast agricultural plain, and you can see for miles around because it's just the old lake bed now being harvested in October. But all around the site itself, where people just pasture sheep and goats there, it's just these, dead grass and equally dead bushes with clouds of flies drawn by the manure of the sheep and
Yeah,
goats. So
yeah,
it was a
yeah.
little insalubrious, but still impressive.
It it certainly it feels a bit wild.
It does.
Yeah,
And the
I
other
like.
picture I sent, which I think you showed a little earlier, it shows that just the single like cast concrete column, which is put there by the archaeologists. All we have pretty much of the citadel, if it was a citadel of Gla, are these the foundations of two the wings of a single palace. It looks like, which may have been the headquarters of some sort. Maybe you talk about this in your video a bit more. It's
Yeah,
not
it's a strange structure because it's not unanimously accepted as a palace. I think it's probably some
right.
sort of a palatial, like palatial building or whatever. It's an administrative building basically. Um, but it's a weird place because there's almost nothing else um, inside the walls. So there's this vast sort of empty open space is what it looks like. So people have speculated whether it could have been a stockpile for grain, or even a place where a chariot army could assemble. And everybody's got a different idea, but it's probably all these things
Right.
at
Yeah.
one time or another. Yeah,
Yeah, I was struck too by the sheer emptiness of the rest of the citadel. And you're right, your imagination fills in the gap. It could be
it does. It does.
chariots marshalling, it could be stockpiles, or just left fallow land. Who's to say?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I also read some interesting ideas, just really speculations, but that it could have even been almost a communal effort between Thebes and Orchomenos. And it may be, that we've got this idea of Thebes and Orchomenos being enemies all the way back to the Bronze Age. But that's potentially got more to do with the classical stories and the classical situation than the actual Bronze Age situation. But yeah,
Yeah, well,
it's
that's a good
interesting.
point. It is, yeah, wonderful place. So that's what I've got for Gla. I don't know if anything else you want to talk about, but yeah, we can go on
No,
to your first site. And
that's brilliant. Yeah, I mean, and you can see it's still very fertile land today. All of the fields in the distance, and that really is, on top of a lake, basically what used to be a lake.
yeah, very striking. So if you're in Greece, I think both Pete and I recommend it wholeheartedly.
I'd highly recommend Glar. I suppose the only issue is, I mean, where did you stay when you were near Glar?
I was actually coming from Delphi and going back
Okay,
towards
yeah.
Athens, so it was en route to somewhere else. Yeah, it is hard to find a
Yes,
base
yes.
near there. I don't know where you were when you visited.
Well, we stayed in Orchomenos itself,
Oh,
which
you
was
did?
a
Okay.
very nice place, but it's not touristy. We'll
No.
say that. I mean, I don't think there were really any restaurants. There was sort of one restaurant, but it had seen better days. I would say. It seemed like the place had been hit quite badly by the economic crash in 2008, sadly, as lots of Greece has,
Right.
and potentially never really recovered. And most people, I think, are farmers, and it's just it's not one of those touristy places. So I'm going to go somewhere. People may have heard of this place. This is Midea.
Ah,
So, not far from Tiryns, not far from Mycenae, very close, in fact. I mean, this is the Argos Plain down here, and so it's within. You can see Mycenae, you can see Tiryns from this place, and this is Midea. It's often considered kind of the third most impressive citadel of the Mycenaean world. I would argue that Glar should be above it, but in many guidebooks and things, it's sort of seen as the third one. It's like Mycenae, Tiryns, then Midea. But you can see the massive wall here. You can see the remnants of quite a lot of structures within, and There's no one there. Again, absolutely no one there. So this ludicrously impressive site, just not very visited. And there, this is the same sort of wall that would have been at Glar as well. It's a bit more intact here. And even in its sort of crumbled state, it's very impressive. It's very impressive. But really, we don't know much about Midea in terms of the histories. So Mycenae and Tiryns both have lots of mythology to talk about them. Midea doesn't really have much, which is strange. And we don't really know what the political situation was, whether it was kind of like a fief of Mycenae, whether it was like a stronghold that was potentially gifted to one of the princes or something on behalf of the king of Mycenae, or whether it was independent. But there's been some very interesting archaeology here, because like Mycenae, like Tiryns, like many Mycenaean sites, there's a really interesting grave site down below, which is the Dendra Necropolis. And you may know about this, you may not know about this.
Oh yes, I mean, I've never been to
You've never
Midea,
been?
to be honest. Yeah, I drove past the signs for it. I remember I'm like, hey, that'd be kind of fun to visit, and then I didn't. So I'm regretting that right now. But
I would
anyway,
highly
go on.
recommend.
I'll
would
comment
highly
from
recommend.
ignorance.
So in the Nafplio Archaeology Museum, did you get a chance to go there at all?
Here again, I stayed in Vapheio, quite close to the museum, and then failed
There's
to visit.
so much to do, though.
There is, yeah. It's a dangerous thing.
Absolutely. But on my visit, I was just amazed by this, because this is the Dendra panoply. So I'm pretty sure it's the earliest suit of armour in the world. I could be wrong there, but it's very early. This is, 1500 BC kind of thing. And it's this amazing one piece of bronze armour with a boar's tusk helmet on top. And it was discovered just below Midea. So whoever wore this was associated with this citadel. It's just so cool. It's just so cool. It's so weird. And it's so different looking to our...
Yes.
Our idea of what this Age of Heroes was like. Christopher Nolan's upcoming film on the Odyssey, I think it's called The Return. They don't look like this. They don't wear this armor.
No, to the despair of the internet.
Yeah, but they should.
They should.
This is what they should be looking like. This is what Odysseus should be looking like.
I read somewhere that you would require something like 50 or even 100 boars to make a good helmet like that.
Yes.
And you can imagine that takes some doing to be spearing so many boars, taking the tusks, applying them to this helmet.
Oh, I was speaking to Flint Dibble about this, actually.
Really?
And he was saying that a study was done, and the idea that they were sort of wild boars may not be accurate. They may be actually domesticated pigs, interestingly. So that completely threw my idea of it out the window, because I would assume that they'd go out to the forest, take the boar's tusks back as kind of like a trophy. But that, maybe that was the case originally, but later on, it just became this potentially anyway. This keeping of pigs as the boars, as farm animals, and then using their tusks from there.
It would be a lot more practical, I suppose.
But
where's the romance, right? Of just spearing pigs in an enclosure. I was talking to. Sorry.
No. I was just going to say, there's this idea. I always think kings get a bit lazy, after they've been in power for a while. So maybe it was after a few generations of going and catching the boars, the descendants just, got somebody else to do it, basically.
It's for propaganda. You spear one or two, and the rest can be taken care of in the back shed.
That's right.
But I was going to say, I was talking with a zooarchaeologist recently who digs in the Peloponnese. And they'd done some pollen studies on the Bronze Age flora of that area, and had discovered that there was a dense forest, and what was, from the classical period onward, all farmland. And so definitely was much more of we think of almost as a heroic landscape in Greece in the Bronze Age, much less cleared land, a much more old-growth forest. But it's hard to say if around, say, Mycenae or Midea, that was the case as well.
That's so interesting. So they've looked at pollen samples and things.
Exactly.
I would imagine. Yeah. Oh wow, amazing. Yeah. I mean, because I would I tend to have an idea of the plains around Mycenae as being kind of similar to today, because you have the road system and the
Hmm.
dam system. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was just partly farms
Yeah.
with a fringe that was still wild.
Yeah, it's hard
Interesting
to say.
stuff.
I know that
Hard
there,
to
there
say.
were
Hard to
there,
say.
there were lions in Greece until the 5th century BC. Not many of them, but a few. And that kind of brings home how wild parts of Greece still were, even at the height of the classical period.
Yeah. Lions, man. Oh, it's crazy. So is it the Nemean lion that
Hmm.
Hercules fights? Yeah. Maybe there's some truth to it.
Right, right.
Maybe. So there must have been bears as well then.
Yes.
Hmm.
Though, of course, all up in the high in the mountains and farther and farther north as the period went on.
Yeah. Yeah. So up in what? Oh God, what are they even called? The mountains above in the central Peloponnese. There must have been a lot of bears. I would have thought.
Oh, yeah, yeah, Arcadia, kind of that
That's right,
area.
Arcadia. That's what I was
Uh,
thinking of. Yeah, the land of Pan.
exactly. And
Yeah.
apparently bears too.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Is there a Greek god associated with bears?
Well, there's this
Is
really
it
odd
Artemis?
myth. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, she's the goddess, the mistress of beasts, right? The
Hmm.
goddess of all wild things. Um, yeah, there's the sanctuary of Artemis at Brauron, not too far from Athens, where
Oh,
the
I've been there. That's a
oh, you
lovely
have,
place.
yeah, and like there's that odd ritual where little girls play the bear. They dress up as bears, and
Ah,
somehow we don't
yes.
understand. It's
I
one of these
remember.
coming of age rituals, and so I
Yeah.
guess if any goddess has command over bears, it would be her.
Mm.
But yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
I like Artemis. There's lots of interesting stories about
hmm,
Artemis.
yeah,
She's kind
she
of
gets
this
around.
nature deity. She gets around,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
I think
very
that's the
cool.
Mycenaean world done. We can probably move forward to the
All
classical
right,
world
yeah.
now.
So take that Bronze Age. Yeah. What was my next site? I'm trying to. Oh yes. How about we do Dodona next?
Yep. Perfect.
And have you been there out of curiosity?
I've not. I've read all about it. I've not done much of northern Greece, so this is pretty north, I think, is it?
It is, yeah, north central
Yeah.
Greece. The nearest city is Ioannina, and Albania is not all that far away, actually.
Right.
But yeah, it's very seldom visited, and that was the case, honestly, for most of antiquity after the classical period. Dodona is supposedly the oldest oracle in Greece, even older than Delphi. But because it's so remote, up in this high valley of the Pindus Mountains, it's just not much visited. It's not very monumental either. For a while, King Pyrrhus, the guy who invades Italy in the 3rd century BC,
Yes.
he rules Epirus, of course, which is now northwestern Greece, and he, as the head of the Epirot League, does initiate a monumental campaign there. He builds a very famous theater, which is actually my other picture, I think. Which is almost the only really impressive building that's there now is this big theater. He also does some things to monumentalize the center of the sanctuary, but there's not much he can do because the center of the sanctuary is an oak grove. And especially this one oak that's held to be prophetic. It's an oak that speaks somehow
Oh,
with the voice of
yes.
Zeus.
I
Uh,
love this.
yeah, and it's really weird. Either it's the wind in the
Yeah.
branches that is the voice of Zeus,
Yeah.
or it's the sound of acorns, or the pattern in which acorns fall from the branches and hit these bronze cauldrons that are arrayed around this oak space. And so it's a weird oracle, nothing quite like it anywhere in Greece. And so the patter of acorns, the sound of wind in the branches, is interpreted by these priestesses who are called the doves, like the birds that perch in the oak's branches. And also these priests who, for some reason, never wash their feet. It's something, some ritual purpose, I guess, but must have also
Hobbits.
been exactly yes, the Hobbit priests. And so it's an interesting sanctuary because you have this huge theater and these other buildings constructed for this Danaia, it was called, this festival that was held under Pyrrhus and his successors in honor of Zeus. But then just beside it are these very humble ruins, a few small shrines, and then an enclosure within which the oak tree stood, this famous oak. And there must have been more than one tree over the course of that 1,000 years it was in operation. But we don't really know because no one talks about Dodona. It was really famous or frequented widely only during the classical and early Hellenistic periods. After that, it was almost neglected. The Romans seem to have sacked the sanctuary when they conquered Epirus in the early 2nd century BC. and after that it was relegated to the second tier, I guess, of Greek oracles. It's not heard much
Right.
of. But
So
it
when you
really
say no,
is.
nobody talks about it, do we not have? There's only shreds of historical accounts then about the place.
Yes, a few classical authors describe the oak tree, the priestesses there, people going to Dodona. But I don't remember actually if Pausanias goes there. I should know this, but I didn't look this up before my interview.
He is
Um,
the guy, isn't he? He is the
he's
guy.
the guy. If anyone would
He's
have
the
gone there,
guy.
he would have.
Yeah,
Him or maybe,
yeah,
maybe Strabo or somebody.
yeah.
But we know only really what archaeology has shown, which is that it was never monumental the way that Delphi was or Olympia was. It had, this big theater. It had a few other structures for the festivals, and then just this oak tree with a few shrines scattered around it. In the early Christian period, a basilica was built right on top of all of this cluster of temples and sanctuaries as a way of, making it into a Christian holy place. At that point, we assume the tree is probably chopped down too. But shortly after that, probably after the Slavic invasions of Greece, it all is abandoned and we have nothing more. There's no further occupation of the site. So it is it's a wild feeling place because there's nothing around it, just this vast, empty mountain valley. And in the center, this cluster of ruins around the vanished oak tree. So very
And
evocative.
this is your picture.
It is, yes. I,
Yeah.
I was
So
there
I mean,
just a
there's
few weeks ago.
of course no one there.
No one, absolutely no one.
There never is. You go to Delphi and it's
Oh,
thousands and
yes.
thousands of people. You go to Mycenae, thousands of people. You go to Athens, the
Millions,
Parthenon,
yeah.
millions, yeah, tens of thousands on the Parthenon, and it's just. I mean, obviously those sites are incredible, but in terms of the experience, this is way better. This is way better. We should work for the Greek tourist board. shouldn't we?
Clearly, yes. Bring attention to these out of the way parts
Yeah.
of Greece.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, it was
But
me
it
and
makes
like. Oh,
it
go ahead.
makes me
Sorry.
sad though. Sorry, no, you go ahead.
No, I say it was me and 4 feral dogs, pretty much, who followed me around the site and begged for
There's
my
always some
sandwich.
feral dogs. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Friendly, I assure you. If anyone wants to go there, very friendly.
I met an archaeologist in Greece, and he had this whistle that he would do
Oh, really?
to get the dogs to like move away, and I wish I'd learned how to whistle like he did. There's I think it's like what some of the farmers do, and he learned it from the farmers, but it just makes
Oh,
the dogs
yeah.
go. They just scatter when they hear this whistle.
That'd have been
Quite
hugely,
impressive.
hugely useful on many of many of sites I've been to.
Yeah, yeah,
In
yeah.
Turkey, often it's me and these enormous Anatolian sheepdogs who are often
Yes.
harmless, but they're gigantic. 200-pound
They're
animals.
huge, so you don't know
So-
what's going to happen. Yeah.
No,
And if
yeah,
the farmer would shoo them away, but if he's not in sight, it's going to be a little bit scary, can't it?
Right? Yeah, yeah. You're the intruder, right? So I've been treed a
right.
couple times, chased up walls, things like that.
That's right. Yeah. Because I mean, many of these archaeological sites, they've farmed really. There's sort of parts of them are just part of the landscape, and yeah, it's amazing they've survived to the present. Really.
It is.
I mean,
yes,
this has been dug though, right?
yeah,
this
so the
theatre.
theater's been
Yeah.
cleared and restored, and so has the main part of the sanctuary. But it's isolated today, just farms all around,
Yeah,
and almost
yeah.
no mass tourism. So you almost have the same feel that you would at an undug site. It's just
Absolutely.
pristine.
Except it is pristine. It has been dug, and then it's just been
Exactly.
sort of
So
left
it's
there.
the
'Cause
best
if
of
you
all
go-
worlds.
That's right. And I'm sure as you see it when you see a theatre that hasn't been dug, it's really it looks like a hillside.
Exactly.
Maybe
right. Mm-hmm.
a couple of stones out of place, and you can make out the shape of it. But yeah, it's a special experience going to a place like this. I was just thinking as well, 1,000 years for an oak tree. Is that's an oak tree can survive for 1,000 years.
Yeah, it
I
could,
live-
in theory.
I live near Sherwood Forest.
Ah, yes.
Of Robin Hood fame, and there's an oak tree there called the Major Oak, and it is actually propped up by a lot of sort of sticks and wires, but that's supposedly stood there for more than 1,000 years.
Wow. Yeah, I think we don't know if it was the same tree all throughout. In theory, it could have been. Though my guess is that when the Romans rolled through, they might have burned the whole sanctuary, which might have taken care of the original, as was their want.
Probably, yeah. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
And that probably would have put paid to Oak Mark 1. And so perhaps they had to
Yeah,
plan
Oak
at that
Mark One.
point.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I suppose we know a little bit of the ins and outs of the sanctuary at Delphi. I think. Am I right in saying that there's
Yes.
some historical accounts about kind of how it worked? Do we know more about that than Dodona then?
Yes, I think quite a bit
Yeah.
more, because Delphi was so much more central and so much more prominent for really throughout the whole period that Dodona was also flourishing.
Yeah. What were the other oracles? Remind me.
Well, there are quite a few. Actually, I've been to one near Athens called the Amphiaraon. It's kind of on the borders of
Oh wow.
Attica and Oropus towards Thebes.
Yeah.
And it was a medical oracle, so kind of like these sanctuaries of Asclepius, where you go and dream to have your ailment either diagnosed or cured,
Like Epidaurus.
just like it.
Yeah.
And so in this case, it was the healing hero Amphiaraus who would come to you in your dreams and tell you how to get better. And it was developed all around, this, sacred spring of Amphiaraus. And the oracle in that case was not a person or a tree. It was the dreams that would come to you. There's the Oracle of the Dead up in Ephora. I've been actually to a site that masquerades as this site. It's not. It's a farmhouse probably. But this was subterranean, and you would go down through this labyrinth, cross the subterranean river, and kind of consult with via some medium, the oracles,
Wow.
the spirits of the dead.
Like the river Styx.
Exactly, which supposedly the Acheron River is supposed to have risen in that part of Greece, and so that's kind of why they placed this here. So there were quite a few oracles. In Asia Minor and in Turkey, there was the one at Claros of Apollo that became very prominent in the Roman era. And there too, there was kind of a labyrinth. You would go down beneath the temple. There was this maze of rooms with marble ceilings, and finally come to the oracle deep below. There's one at Didyma, also that famous great temple of Apollo there, that huge temple. In the middle of that, there was a small spring. And the oracle would sit with her feet bathed in the water and then kind of answer your questions. So quite a few all over the Greek world.
It makes me think how old that really is. Does it go back thousands of years before the classical world, almost to deep prehistoric times, or is it a more recent sort of addition?
I think there are always places like Delphi, like Dodona
Yeah.
perhaps, that felt sacred in some way. Either if it was an entrance to the underworld, it was just thought to be uncanny, and that people were drawn to that, from prehistory. We just don't know, of course, unless we have the archaeology that proves that.
Of course, of course. Because it's almost seems a little bit shamanic. Not quite, but there's like maybe a leftover of shamanism. This
Yeah,
idea of you
maybe.
sort of going to the other world to find the knowledge, bringing it back, and presenting it to the people. But it's almost like a commodified version of that, where you can go and kind of, because they were paying money, really, weren't they?
Yes.
Yeah, so you can go and pay a bit of money and get somebody to, rather than it just being for the good of the community, it's more of a sort of commercialized version of it. The Greeks were good at that,
They were,
commercializing
yes,
things.
yeah. In so many ways, our predecessors, right? And,
Yeah,
and there we see
absolutely.
it.
Absolutely, yeah. And then you see their buildings all over our cities today, the sort of classical, neoclassical style.
Oh, yes, yeah. And that never gets old for me, spotting these echoes of antiquity, even here in Chicago.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I've never been to Chicago, but I've been quite
Yeah,
a lot of
well,
places in the States. But I mean, is Chicago a similar kind of thing to New York? Are there lots of like old buildings from the early 1800s and things?
well, it's newer than New York. It's really a 19th century city.
Yeah.
But there are all these wonderful churches scattered around the neighborhoods, which are built in often a Roman Renaissance style. And so there you have, a cornucopia of classical detailing. And also things built for like the World's Fair of 1893, for example. They had a rash of neoclassical architecture built then too.
Amazing. And then Al Capone.
And Al Capone, yeah, him and Michael Jordan are our two celebrities since then. But
Oh, Michael Jordan. Awesome. Yeah, yeah.
exactly,
It's, is it Michelle Obama who's from Chicago?
yes, originally, and then of course Barack
Not
moved
Barack
here.
Obama. Oh, he moved there. Yeah, yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So his library is going to be built in the South Side. Actually, is currently being built in the South Side.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Nice, nice. Yeah. I'd like to go to Chicago actually.
Oh, yeah, I
You got
got
it.
you.
Is it the Field Museum?
That's right, exactly. A
Yeah.
wonderful
Is it
museum.
good one? Yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed the museums of sort of New England, but then I was thinking naively, I could just nip over to Chicago, but it is quite far.
Yeah, yeah, that's the problem with America. It just kind of keeps going.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, so I could have done it but it would have taken me like 3-4 days in order to go to that one museum.
Well, next time, drop me a line when you're in town.
Next time. Oh, I'll have to. Yeah, yeah. Right, what have I got lined up then? All right, let's go to Miletus. We'll stick on the sort of,
Oh, yes.
we mentioned Anatolia, so in fact this is probably almost a little bit linked to your dissertation maybe, because this
It
is
does.
Western Anatolia, and you'll know much more about than I will about Miletus. I know about Bronze Age Miletus primarily,
Ah.
because as I'm sure you know, it's a tell really.
Hmm.
So this is sort of This is the outline of what the city did look like in antiquity, and the harbour was kind of here. Um, all this farmland to the right hand side would have actually been the sea, which is then silted up
Hmm.
many hundreds of years ago. Um, but there's lots to see here. There is lots to see at Miletus. Just up the coast, it might be just down the coast, a few hours away is Ephesus, which I'm sure you know. And Ephesus is an incredible place, but it's the most touristy archaeological site I've ever been to. It's
Yes.
kind of like a theme park. It's like going to Disneyland in a way, because you go to the entrance and there's just like hundreds of shops and fast food restaurants and all this stuff, and it's a great day out. But then you go to Miletus, and it's a completely different experience. It's you're wandering around, and I mean, this is the theatre, obligatory theatre,
Hmm.
obligatory empty theatre. Um, and they've not heard of health and safety at this place, which I quite like. You can kind of walk anywhere, and there's not really a barrier to stop you. And if you fall over and hurt yourself, no one's going to come and help you either. Um, but I kind of like that. I kind of like that. And you have the entire place to yourself very often.
Hmm.
And again, it's been heavily excavated, I believe, by the Germans
Yes.
over 100 years and more. So there's absolutely loads to see at this place. And again, it's sort of a lot of it is being farmed. This was a guy who I was just wandering around, and he comes and offers me some fruit from one of the trees that he's growing fruit on. Lovely, lovely people, lovely people. And you meet these guys all over the place. I'm sure you've had many experiences with
Oh,
locals in
yes.
Turkey. Just very friendly people.
Yeah, and it's
And
actually
yeah,
one of my favorite parts of Turkey is right there around Miletus.
mm,
I don't know if you went inland at all from there, but the silting river that has now surrounded Miletus with all of this farmland, also closed off a whole arm of the sea that is now called Lake Bafa. It's kind of just behind, in the distance behind Miletus.
ah,
And there, there's a village called Kapakura, built on the ruins of another Greek city known as Heraclea. And there, it's this wonderful experience of having this small farming village in and among the ruins of this Hellenistic city. So
wow,
it's you have the Temple of Athena kind of looming over the modern mosque. You have this wonderful set of walls from the late or the very end of the fourth century BC, encircling the whole town. Masonry cropping up everywhere between the modern houses. And so whenever I go to this part of Turkey, I stay there. There's like a small pension, and it's really
oh,
kind of a nice experience.
oh, amazing. Oh,
Anyway,
it
sorry to
sounds.
interrupt, but yeah,
No,
it's
that's brilliant. It sounds very idyllic, very quaint.
it is.
Yeah. What's that? I'm gonna have to make a note of this.
Oh yeah,
What's
it's
the
called
place called?
a Kapakura, Kapakiri, it looks like, and it's this ancient city is Heraclea at Latmos on the slopes of Mount Latmos, which is kind of in the background of all your pictures. It's that huge massif in the background. Supposedly
Yeah.
Endymion went to sleep there. The guy who the moon fell in love with. That was where he was on that peak.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
So in
yeah,
Mount
yeah.
Endymion's Peak. Yeah, it's a very cool part of the world. And I know Roman Miletus. I don't know anything about Mycenaean Miletus. But
Mm,
most of what you see, as of course you know from having been there, is Roman because they overbuilt so much. And of course the
absolutely.
Persians destroyed archaic Miletus too, so that helped.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Darius, I think it was, who came
mhm,
along, and because the cities of Western Asia Minor had allied with
right.
Athens, or some of them had anyway, and then the Persians came and put a stop to that um, for that 10 years anyway before Xerxes came. So what was I saying? Okay, so yeah, this is the Roman theatre, as you were saying, but then on top of it, on top of the theatre, there's a castle.
Hmm.
Uh, so I don't know. I mean, this is the only time that I know of when there's a castle directly on top of a ancient theatre. But that was pretty cool to see. So that's a Byzantine castle directly on top. But underneath is quite a large city, actually. Quite a large Bronze Age city. Um, it was Mycenaean, but it was also Carian,
Hmm.
and then before that it was Minoan, and before that it was kind of just, I guess, Bronze Age Anatolian, really, Luwian.
Hmm.
But a city did thrive there for thousands of years before the Romans. And really, the secret to the place's success is that it was on this harbour. But I'm sure you probably know more about this. But when did the harbour actually silt up? Was it the late Roman period?
It was already becoming a problem by the mid-imperial era, by the second and third centuries. There were three small harbors kind of all around the peninsula in which it was built. And the main harbor, they called it the Lion Harbor, because there are these two lion statues kind of near the entrance. That was already becoming. We have buildings being built out over what was former harbor by the third century. So we know it was a problem by then, and probably by late antiquity, it was almost totally landlocked.
Yeah. And then when you're landlocked, well, not much you can do if you're a port city.
Right. And of course, Ephesus
Something
has the
else.
same problem. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, yeah, Ephesus is kind of similar, I think, isn't it?
Exactly.
But yeah, that's another one that's got deep, deep antiquity, because Ephesus was Apasia, I believe it was known as in the, well, it's potentially referenced in the Hittite records
Right.
in the second millennium BC. It's just very old place. And I mean, this is at Miletus, and I love that you can kind of walk through these, just sort of, they're like tunnels, but they're not tunnels. They're in the theatre, and you're in the back rooms, really, sort of wandering around. And again, nobody else there.
Yeah,
Nobody
it's
else
a
there.
wonderful sight. And I think you were there. It looks like, I'm going to guess summer, early summer, maybe you were there?
This was actually the height of summer. I think
It
this
was.
was August, actually.
Oh, okay. So it
Which
was
is
dried up by then.
unusual for me. I don't usually go in August.
Yeah, because if you go in spring, it's largely underwater, the whole city center. That whole area by the Agora will be knee deep
Wow.
in, yeah, knee deep in water.
Really? So
Yeah,
what?
it's
Just sort of flooding?
just, yeah, spring rain. The water table goes up
Wow.
as the water comes, as the water falls, and eventually it'll sink back down. You have this like landscape of dried reeds and mud, or dried mud, as you saw in midsummer. But it's a very marshy place still if you're there in spring,
Yeah, how
up through
interesting.
about late May.
How interesting. Yeah, it was very dry, actually, when I went. It was very, very hot. Very
Yeah, it's
exposed.
miserable in August.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was loving it, but I was absolutely coated in sun cream. Yeah, interesting. So so it floods quite a lot, and that's that is the silting process and the accumulation.
Yeah, it's just very marshy ground, and so
Yeah,
anytime that the soil is moist, all of these excavations which are below the grade now of the surrounding landscape just become ponds.
yeah, yeah. Not great for archaeology.
No, no. I did a video actually just recently on Told in Stone about the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus, which has the same problem. It's now well below the water table. So when they were digging it in the 19th century, they had to get these massive pumps. They borrowed one from the railroad company and pump out millions of gallons every morning because it would fill overnight. And so you're working, thigh deep in muck as they're trying to, get these treasures out from the ground. It must have been thoroughly miserable.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's an interesting place, the Temple of Artemis. What's left of it, anyway.
Yeah, not a whole lot.
Not a lot. Not a lot. Yeah, what's an interesting thing about that? I mean, there's one column left, isn't there? But even
Yeah,
that column has been reconstructed, I think.
in the 70s, right, from fragments, and it's still only about two-thirds the height it should be. Yeah, they had to that was the best they could get to cobble together.
Yeah. Was it the biggest temple in the Greek world?
It was, I believe. It narrowly eclipsed the Temple of Hera at Samos. That was its big rival.
Yeah.
And I believe it was never eclipsed in terms of sheer height, number of columns, general magnificence.
And there was, I think, were there three different temples? Because they built one, it was burned down, and they built another, and something happened,
Yes.
and it was
Yeah,
there was
actually
that
that one. No,
there
go
was
ahead,
that
sorry.
ultimate scapegoat as well, wasn't there?
There was, yes. So the first temple we think was buried by a flood, actually, the flood of the
Oh,
Cayster
right.
River nearby. Then
Wow.
temple number two, right, was probably burned, quote unquote, by this guy Herostratus. but it was, as you say, probably a scapegoat. The priest knew the temple was settling really badly, so that,
Yeah.
okay, let's blame this poor lunatic and burn it down
Blame this
ourselves.
nutter, and we'll build a new one.
Right, and Temple 3, the most famous temple, that one was disassembled by a combination of Goths, earthquakes, and just stone plundering.
Oh, it's always the Goths, isn't it?
Uh, the worst barbarians.
Yeah.
Nothing good to say about them.
And it was early as well. It was in it third. Was it third century AD?
Yes, yeah, the Goths invaded Western Asia Minor then in the mid
Yeah.
third century, and they descended upon the Temple of Artemis, drawn by the offerings there, one assumes, and may have genuinely burnt the temple this time.
So it's sort of Alaric the Goth's great grandfather.
Exactly, his aspirational models for looting and pillaging.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
So,
yeah,
yeah,
I guess
this-
we can go on.
This whole area of Western Asia Minor is absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. I'd highly recommend anyone go and visit the place. Anyone who likes Greece will like this.
Yes, yeah, all the Greece and only a few of the tourists.
Yeah.
Unless you're at Ephesus,
it's-
in which case they're all there with you. But
And the funny thing is, as well, I won't go too much into the differences between Greeks and Turks because there's a long-standing sort of national rivalry there. But the Greeks and the Turks that I meet, they're all the same. They're all like so similar. They're so similar. They'd all get on with each other.
oh yeah, and they did until
Yeah.
fairly recently.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But,
Absolutely.
yeah, very similar when it comes to guests. They're very welcoming people.
Absolutely. And the food's similar, and yeah, so much that the places they live are very similar as well. Yeah. So yeah, it's a shame, because they were united for thousands of years. These lands, the Western Asia Minor, was really part of the Greek world. Yeah.
Well, great. I guess we can tackle Eleusis then, if you feel up to it.
Let's do it. Now I know this place from the Eleusinian Mysteries, which are sort of it's almost it's like a pop history thing. I
It
think a
is.
lot
It's
of people will
become
have heard of it.
kind of a cottage industry of what
Yeah.
crazy drug was being used at Eleusinian
Pretty
Mysteries.
Yeah.
And the historian boring answer is probably none, but more on that in a moment.
Cool. Let's do it.
So Eleusis is now in the suburbs of Athens. So the modern name is Elefsina. And it's a deeply unlovely place, frankly. It's this industrial port, all kinds of like rusting cranes and derelict warehouses. Thoroughly unpleasant place to visit, frankly. I had to find parking there because I was driving in from Athens and it took me a half hour to do it. So Elefsina today is not a place of magic and mystery, but it surrounds modern Eleusis, which is a very evocative site. As you mentioned, it's the place of the Eleusinian Mysteries, which for 1,000 years are the most iconic and famous mysteries. That is, these sites at which you are initiated into a set of secrets that gives you, an advantage, let's say, when it comes to the Greek religion. Some special insight into how the gods work, and more on that in a moment. But Eleusis, as we see it, is really a tale of 2 centuries. The 5th century BC, when most of the main buildings are built under Pericles. This is kind of on the fringe of Athenian territory. And then the 2nd century AD, when the Romans rebuild most of the site after a barbarian raid that kind of comes down and burns many of the main buildings. And so you're seeing in most cases these Roman reconstructions or reimaginations of classical buildings, which I'm into, of course, being a Roman historian. This first picture here shows the main court when you first come in. You're looking toward the primary entrance, the Greater Propylaea, which was this enormous gate modeled on the Propylaea in Athens, but built more than half a millennium later. So it's this kind of architectural fanboying of this great structure on the Acropolis. The Romans are trying to recreate the magic of that very iconic building. Beyond it, there's this hill you can kind of see, this rocky hill. And that's the center of the reenactment that is the Mysteries, which is the reenactment of Demeter losing and then being reunited with her daughter Persephone. So famously, Persephone is out among the wildflowers, and she's taken by Hades down to the underworld to be his wife. Demeter mourns, and in her mourning, the earth dies. Nothing can grow. But then she is reunited with her daughter, thanks to the good offices of Zeus. And in this reuniting, the world is reborn. Spring. and the hope, as we'll see, of eternal life. And so it's this cycle of death and rebirth that's reenacted in the mysteries. People come from Athens. There's a long march. Who come holding a piglet, actually, which you then sacrifice promptly when you first come into you throw it into this big pit when you first come into the sanctuary.
Oh, wow.
It's like a giant barbecue, actually. There's
Giant
these different
barbecue,
burners, and you chuck the piglet, squealing onto that, all for good purpose. And then you march in.
You throw it on alive.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
Ooh,
tough,
okay.
tough
Yeah.
bounce for the piglet, literally.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you come to this main gate, this propylaea, and beside it there's this spring where there's a dance you reenact to kind of recapitulate the dances that the women of Eleusis put on to cheer up Demeter while she was mourning for her daughter. Behind it, on that rocky hill, is the mirthless rock where Demeter sat and again wept for Persephone. You follow then this processional way, which is pretty short, up to my second picture, which is the Telesterion, the building at the center of the sanctuary. It's just the foundations now. You can see kind of the bases of the columns that held the roof up, and there in the left side, the stone seats on which people sat. But it was, when it was intact, this massive roofed hall with room for thousands of initiates who would come and watch on the culminating night of the mysteries this sacred drama being reenacted. It was illegal. It was death to reveal what happened in the Telesterion. So we don't know. We assume it was some kind of reenactment of Demeter finding again Persephone, and in her reuniting with her daughter, the birth of fertility, the origins of life for mankind. So we think that they were probably shown an ear of grain, for example, as kind of an emblem of the goddess, what her gifts were to mankind. There were probably bright lights, music. We just aren't really sure. But at the center of this structure, kind of intriguingly, are the remains of a Bronze Age, a Mycenaean building under the Holy of Holies, the Anactoron. So obviously this goes back a very long way. Something sacred happening at this place. We aren't totally sure when the mysteries achieved their definitive form. Probably in the Archaic era, say the 7th century BC, but with roots that are maybe a millennium older than that. As I mentioned, for people who are initiated at Eleusis, anyone could do this, slave or free, man and woman, didn't matter, as long as you spoke Greek and were ritually pure. You hadn't killed anybody recently. And so if you were ritually pure, spoke Greek, and came with a good spirit into these mysteries, the idea was that you could have a hope for a better afterlife. What that meant exactly, we aren't quite sure. But the Greek vision of the afterlife was pretty bleak. It was what we see in the Odyssey, these flitting ghosts that are without form or substance. And so perhaps by seeing these mysteries, by seeing the goddess's gifts offered to mankind, fertility, rebirth, you were shown a vision of something more hopeful, of a kind of paradise in the afterworld, but we aren't totally sure. But a wonderful place, a wonderful site, and almost never visited, because it is in this deeply and lovely suburb of Athens that no one wants to go to.
So even though it's in Athens, it doesn't really get visited.
No, it's sort of on the fringe. It's probably 15 miles from the Acropolis. And to get there means taking a lot of buses or renting a car or taking a private tour or something.
Being stuck in traffic as well.
Exactly, because Athens is miserable.
But Greece is it's an interesting country, isn't it? Because almost everybody lives in Athens.
Yeah.
It's a good few million people, and then in the rest of the country, there's kind of barely anybody.
It feels like that sometimes. Yeah, half the country is right there within 10 miles of Eleusis, and you're aware of it every rush hour.
Yeah. So it's a loud place, I guess.
It is. Though at Eleusis, kind of when I was there, it is peaceful, or at least in theory it is. There was a protest going on right next door, because of course there was.
Yeah, of course.
There was a strike of all the buses. But between, the loudspeaker and the chants, it was kind of a serene place still. You hear the birds and those trees up in the mountain, and a sense of being able to recreate the mysteries of 2,000 years ago.
Oh, it's amazing. So we really just have no idea what was going on in those mysteries.
No, all kinds of fun guesses. And I guess I should have mentioned before, as you did earlier, people assume that this mystery wouldn't have been such a transcendent experience if there hadn't been some kind of chemical assistance. And so there's theories about ergot, this fungus that grows on barley, that people ingested this, had like almost like LSD-style hallucinations while they were watching the mysteries take place. And it would have been a very memorable trip, to the underworld and beyond. But I think, and most archaeologists think, that this is probably not true. That it really was just the mystical experience combined with
Yeah.
fasting, just the heightened sensory, uh, I guess, experience of being in this massive building where it's totally dark. There are flashes of lights, there are loud music, and you're keyed up, you're prepared to see something special that you haven't
Yeah.
seen before.
Yeah.
I think that matters much more than any kind of drug.
I don't think that there's any evidence of the ergot. I
No,
think it's a entirely speculative idea. It's an interesting idea, but it is one
it
that
is. And it's not
I think there is
impossible
no
by any
evidence
means.
for it. Yeah.
Initiates
Yeah.
drink this elixir called Kerkion, I think it was, which was barley and pennyroyal mixed with water. So in theory, there would have been a mechanism for introducing ergot into the system if all of that barley mixed into this drink was contaminated. But how that would have happened, how they could have cultivated that, I think that's beyond what the ancients knew about botany, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. But certainly things like this could have been happening in the Mycenaean world, potentially, because as you say, there's a Mycenaean predecessor to this site, as there is at many other places. Trying to think of a good example. What's a good example of a? So in on the island of Naxos, there's the same kind of thing. There's at Iria, there's the sanctuary of Dionysus, and there they found basically pretty much the same thing going on in the Mycenaean period as the classical period. So 1,000 years of almost continuous sort of religious veneration going on there. And there's another one. What's the other one that I'm thinking of?
There's one at Delos you might have seen. There's like
Delos.
a Mycenaean tomb that was kind of respected and built around all through the classical period.
Yes. Yes. And then there's another. I love Delos.
It's a cool place.
And there's another one.
Oh, I'm trying to think. There are a
The
few
sanctuary
other.
of Hera, which is
Oh, at Samos, that one.
no, I'm thinking of the one in the Argolid. It's near Mycenae.
Oh, the Horion. Yeah, right. The
The
famous
Horion,
temple.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
There's Mycenaean antecedents there.
Oh, I didn't
as
know
well.
that.
Yeah, as there are in many places. It's interesting thinking how long that back the religion of the classical world went, because there is an idea that the same gods were worshipped in the
Right.
Mycenaean period. Whether that is actually true, I don't know, because I've read conflicting ideas, but certainly comparisons can be made.
We have those Linear B tablets that mention gods who sound like
They
Poseidon,
sound
for
like
example.
yeah, that's right. So it sounds like you can you can say this is bizarre. To be fair, a god of the sea. I mean, there's always going to be a god of the sea, really, isn't there? But
I think that the question is how much of like the mythical attributes, the cult comes
Yeah.
from, a pre-archaic dimension. How much is just invented by Homer and friends?
yeah,
And,
that's
and
right.
we
that's
can't
right.
be sure, I guess.
Because then as you go forward in time, people are mixing gods together anyway. So you have sort of Zeus becomes god in the east, and he becomes is it Amun in Egypt? One of the Egyptian gods. Zeus sort of is seen as
Exactly.
the same, basically. So yeah, it's
Oh
interesting.
yeah, yeah. I love this these syncretic fusions of gods. So they think the
That's
god is
right.
close enough, but he's
It's
kind of
close enough.
He's our brand of Zeus, right? And he's the local Zeus, and
That's right. Yeah.
all of these cults, the Greek city cults, that they're kind of different takes on the same basic set of deities, but can be so different sometimes, so idiosyncratic as to be really their own god. And
Yeah.
it's a nice
That's
thing
right.
about
That's
polytheism;
right.
they can kind of accommodate this sort of diversity
Yeah,
of
that's
opinion.
right. That's right. And I think because it happened in Roman Britain as well when the Romans came
Right.
here, and I always think that it was potentially it was an idea of the people coming to terms with the Roman world, but also the Romans sort of like making the conquest a bit more acceptable. Like your god Sulis is the same as our god Minerva. It's it's okay.
Like,
We have the same.
yeah, right.
Bringing them in to the fold, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting how the initiative seems to very often be from the local side. It's a way of local elites to
Yes.
say, hey, here's our gods. We simultaneously validate our gods and kind of
Yes.
adopt yours by doing this.
That's right.
And then there are times where the emperors themselves, through the imperial cult, often will impose this sort of, a pantheon of which they are a part at least. Or in a
Yes.
Roman colony, for example, where they have that Capitolium of Jupiter, Juno, Minerva in the center, and you can kind of whatever you do, fit this in to your worldview
Yeah. It's kind of a mixture of top down and then
and bottom up.
well,
Exactly.
yeah, exactly, yeah. It's interesting. Right, where are we?
I think it's your
It's,
turn. Yeah, set number
it's
3,
my
whatever
turn.
yours
My
is.
turn.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go outside of Greece. We'll stay in Turkey, but I just wanted to talk about Mount Nemrut.
Ah, yes,
I'm sure you've probably been here.
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I came there with one of my tours actually, which is a huge amount of fun. We were there for the sunset and all that good stuff.
amazing. So it's southeastern Turkey. It's essentially the remnants of a Hellenized Iranian kingdom, really. I'll show it on a map. And we're talking, this is the aftermath of Alexander the Great, essentially. A couple of centuries later, the sort of satraps that followed Alexander have ruled over kingdoms in the east for a couple of centuries. They've sort of split apart. And this is one of the remnants, basically. So it's an interesting mixture. Here it is, Commagene. Commagene?
I have no idea, to be honest. I
think it's Commagene.
I think you're right. I believe so, but don't take my word for any of that.
Yeah, but it's a tiny little place, really. I mean, to be fair, it's not tiny, but it's a province-sized kingdom, and they managed to survive through a combination of sort of diplomatic skills and also sort of military might, but just siding with the right person. And by the time the Romans come along, they essentially incorporate it into the empire. But for a brief time, there is a guy called Antiochus I, and he's quite a powerful ruler, and he's this Hellenized Iranian dynast, basically. So he's massively inspired by the Greek world, and he likes the Greek world, and he worships some Greek gods. He worships a combination of Greek and Eastern deities, and upon his death, he is entombed in this absolutely massive tumulus on top of a mountain. And you can see this tumulus for miles around. We stayed in a hotel in the nearest city, and it's, I think, like 50 miles away or something crazy. And you can see the tumulus on the top of the mountain. So it really was built to impress. And all around the tomb, you have these fascinating sort of syncretic deities, basically, from that time period, which I think is the second century BC, so sort of the time of the Seleucids. Unfortunately, the city of Antiochus, Samosata, has not been conclusively excavated. So it's somewhere out in the floodplain, in the plains, sort of overlooked by this mountain where his tomb was. But on top of this mountain, there are depictions of Antiochus himself. But then you also have, this is Zeus, who was also mixed with an Eastern god called Oromazdes. So it sounds kind of Persian. Oromazdes, Zeus Oromazdes. And this is Apollo, who's also mixed with Mithras and Helios. And there's loads of them.
Yeah, it really is.
That's not a great picture there, but it's it's this interesting combination of the Greek and Iranian religious traditions, basically. I think there's some ancestor worship going on as well, because basically I think he was a little bit Greek and he was a little bit Persian, so he respected the sort of the religions of both of his family lines. And then eventually it gets swallowed up by the Romans. But that period, this Hellenistic period, there's a lot of these interesting kingdoms, which it's like somebody's just thrown two cultures together and they wanted to see what would happen. And I just find it really interesting. And it tends to happen in the aftermath of a big empire. And then there's some corner of the empire that almost gets a little bit forgotten about and then survives in a sort of weird new way for a while.
Yeah, you compare like Commagene to the kingdoms of northern India, for example, or Bactria, for that matter, which are
Absolutely.
on the uttermost fringes of the Greek world, but have these syncretic approaches to local religion. Where in India, right, they become Buddhists eventually,
That's
and
right.
we'll have say the a sign of the Buddha on one side and Zeus on the other on their coins. They'll fuse these two wildly disparate traditions. In Bactria too, where you have a lot of the gods of that part of the Persian world, former Persian world, being merged with the Hellenistic pantheon. And like you said, in Commagene, they kind of have their cake and eat it too in terms of Greek culture, where they are Greek, they write in Greek, they claim descent from the Seleucids to some degree, but at the same
Mm,
time, they were also Persian. We're descended from the our Achaemenid kings. Mithra looks over us, and I guess being where they are on the fringes of what becomes the Roman and then the Parthian empires, they're almost forced to straddle that divide. But they did
that's
anyway
right.
because their kings did by lineage and by culture.
That's right. That's right. And it's oh, I just had a thought and it's popped out of my head.
Oh, well, I hate when that happens in these things. So, and it happens so often because there's so many things you
Yeah,
can say, and you pursue one line of thought and the other recedes into the background. But
yeah,
but yeah, so I was there as I said, but with this group, and we talked about what it means to be Greek in this context. That Greek is not, we tend to think of it as being this exclusive identity in some cases, and it can be if you're in Greece or if you're in Miletus, for
yeah.
example.
It can be,
But
but it doesn't
often,
always work out that way.
right, and so often in this world, this Hellenistic world, it's not an exclusive identity. It's the elite identity. It's the one that might you present to the world in the spheres of politics or religion, perhaps. But it's only one of several masks you wear. It's a contextual thing.
That's right. That's what I was going to say. It's kind of the genius of Alexander the Great, really, and the system that he created, because they weren't necessarily excluding the ruling classes of the places that they visited. They were
Hmm.
including them because they were intermarrying with them. So Alexander marries a princess in the far side of the world. I
Hmm.
think she is she a Bactrian princess that he marries.
Yeah, Roxana. I guess she would
That's
be
right.
Bactrian
Yeah.
or Sogdian, maybe one of
Mm.
those.
So very very far away, and then his officers are they're marrying all the people left, right, and centre. So they're creating these new dynasties, which are sort of a bit Hellenic, but also
Hmm.
the local culture as well.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how the only ones who don't do this are the Ptolemies, who marry each other, of course,
That's
famously,
right.
but take on the trappings more and more of the pharaohs. Or at least again,
Mm,
they're two things. To the Greek world, they are the basileus, the Greek king, but to their Egyptian subjects, they are the pharaoh. And they again straddle this what seems like a cultural divide, being two things at once, and successfully for quite a while.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very successful. Yeah, yeah. The Ptolemies are a strange one, aren't they? What was the whole incest thing about? I mean, what's the precedent for that? Were they
Yeah,
trying to emulate what the pharaohs had done before?
the pharaohs and the Greek gods, I guess, is the idea that
Ah,
they're being more
yes.
than mortal by doing this. Though of course, there are lots of spoofs of this. Some playwrights write satires of what's going on in the palace, so it's not accepted, without hesitation by their subjects. But
Yeah,
they got into it, so they kept
yeah.
going.
They really did. Yeah,
Yeah,
isn't it? Yeah. There any incidents of there being any mad Ptolemies? Do we know of?
they became more and more unprepossessing later in the dynasty. I guess there was
Yeah,
enough admixture of other blood that didn't go completely nuts. That they would
yeah.
marry concubines of other
I, s-
dynasties.
I suppose Cleopatra's a bit mad.
Yeah, no
The
one.
latest Cleopatra.
Yeah, exactly. And no one I think that we think of as being so inbred that they're like the Habsburgs say that they can't
That's
function.
right. Yeah.
But they
Or
probably
the
had
or the or the Targaryens.
or the Targaryens. Yeah, and no one's quite there, but they probably didn't have the
Yeah.
best genetics in the world.
No. Yeah, they can't have done. Yeah. Um. Well, that's Comagene.
Oh yeah.
I've realised
Um,
that I've actually missed out one that I was going to say earlier, but we'll do that one next.
okay, yeah, I'm trying to
Um.
remember what my next. Okay,
What have I got for you?
yeah, well, let's do
Let's
Messene
see.
next for my fourth site.
Yeah, brilliant. That's good because then that leads into the one that I've missed. Actually,
Ah, excellent.
that's good. Oh, I like Messene.
All right, so you've been there also?
Do you know what? I haven't actually been to Messene. Annoyingly, I was meant to go there, but I didn't end up going. I like Messene because they're kind of the underdogs.
Right.
It's the way that I see it. They get absolutely battered by Sparta for so long, and then they finally get their independence. But you tell us more.
Oh, yes. So, as you said, Messenia, the region next to Sparta, is where the Helots live. It is the most fertile part of the Peloponnese. It actually has more people than Laconia, where Sparta is. But it's conquered quite early in Spartan history, probably in the 7th and 6th, 7th century BC. And its inhabitants are reduced to the status of helots, of serfs, essentially. And they remain, despite several rebellions' attempts to gain their independence, subordinate to the Spartans for 300 years. But finally, in the early 4th century, this brilliant Theban general, Epaminondas, comes down from Thebes, defeats the Spartans at the Battle of Leuctra, and then liberates the Helots. And to keep them liberated, he gives them this magnificent capital city at Messene, on the slopes of Mount Ithome, which is the ancient heart of Messenia. He builds this gigantic wall. I think it's about 5 miles in circumference, which is so big you can have full-scale fields inside. They can feed themselves and the produce made within their own walls. And at the heart of this walled precinct is the city proper, which has all the trappings of a Greek city, the agora, the temples, etc. He calls in exiles, Helot exiles from all over Greece. Come back. You're free now, and populates his new center of Messene, who's named after this kind of mythical queen of Messenia. Calls them in to populate this new city. There are tens of thousands who come in, and it becomes this counterweight to Sparta for the rest of Hellenistic history. The Spartans are really reduced to second-tier status after Leuctra anyway, and by losing their helots, by losing the really economic basis of their power, and having this city confirming that loss, they can never rise again. And so Messene becomes this great rival to Sparta, which is only about, I don't know, maybe 40, 50 miles away, and becomes this showplace of classical urban design. So in the 4th century, they build these massive complexes of buildings, of which the most impressive is the Gymnasium Stadium complex. And here we see the stadium, and we're looking down toward that kind of temple-like building in the distance, which is actually a tomb built in a place they knew was a good view. We know that the gymnasium, literally the naked place, was central to Greek culture. And really later on in Greek history, in the Hellenistic era, it becomes a combination of kind of a finishing school and PE program, where for a couple years, as an ephebe, age of 18 to 20 more or less, you kind of live in and around the gymnasium. You're doing exercises, you're training your body, you're wrestling, you're sprinting, doing stuff in the stadium. You're also learning to be a good citizen, because to the Greeks, this kind of physical education is allied very closely to your fitness to be a warrior, to defend the polis, to be a citizen. And at Messene, this complex of gymnasium and stadium is well preserved, it's very impressive, and its monumentality confirms, I think, the centrality in Greek culture of this kind of education, of gymnastic education, of learning to be both physically fit and a proper, well-educated, well-rounded citizen. So a pretty impressive complex. So the second picture is also the same thing.
There's that great story just before the Battle of Thermopylae, where all the Spartans are naked and they're all working out, and the Persians are like, "What the hell is going on here?" But they're just doing the Greek thing.
Exactly, and then they comb their hair, I think, afterward too, which they're even more weirded out by. But
yeah. They're all greasing each other up.
Exactly. It's like, I guess they're gonna fight us, but something's going on.
Yeah, something's happening.
But if you go to the second picture, which is the same complex from a different angle, you can see that this stadium is sort of at the center, and then around it is this very long stoa, beneath which they would run in poor weather. And actually, it was very poor weather. You can see it was raining when I was there, but just imagine that stoa being roofed.
It does rain in Greece sometimes.
It does. Whenever I show up, it rains in Greece. And actually, to our left there in that picture is the palaestra, with the wrestling space. So it was this peristyle where they'd wrestle in the courtyard, grapple in the dust. But it really is the most impressive part, imposing part of the modern site, this gargantuan complex dedicated to both festivals and physical education.
Wow. Was it built on top of the original city of Messene?
So there in the background of this picture is Mount Ithome, which is this sanctuary of Messenia. But the city built below it, the 4th century city, is built, I think, on a virgin site. There's nothing there before,
Right.
to the
Yeah.
best of my
So,
knowledge, anyway.
so the Helots were not taken from this place specifically.
They were taken from villages around it, I think,
Yeah.
or like
Yeah.
higher up on the mountainside. But the actual
Yeah.
site of the
Got you.
later city was, I don't believe, ever urbanized before this.
Yeah. It explains why the Spartans were able to defeat them, I suppose.
Right, there are no big walled cities, and the
Yeah.
Theban strategy for boxing in the Spartans involves building these gargantuan walled cities on every side of the Spartans. So Messene, Megalopolis, which is a great city name in general, and
That is
it is, and Mantinea all get big walls in this period.
Mantinea. Yeah. I have been to Megalopolis briefly.
Oh
We
yeah,
passed by and I got out and had a quick look, but it was actually raining then, very hard. And when it
oh
rains in
yeah,
Arcadia, it pours.
it rains, yeah.
It's you're up in the mountains. That site, Megalopolis, is very interesting though, because yeah, that was built by the Thebans, wasn't it? For the local people, essentially. I
Yes,
think
yeah, for the Arcadian League, basically,
that's
and
right.
that was
Yeah,
their new center.
that's right. And they consolidated a load of cities, didn't they? Because it meant Megalopolis is kind of the big city, so they
Exactly.
consolidated a bunch of outlying places, and that was for defense against Sparta. Then,
Yeah, the same purpose as this city,
right?
Messene, and only a few years afterward or before it, I believe.
Yeah. So they're fortified then.
Exactly. And so there's, I don't have a picture of the walls here. I should have included it. But it's this gargantuan circuit, about 5 miles in circumference. The
Wow.
walls are all about 8 feet through, 30 feet high. There are these very large towers that are big enough for artillery. So you could have
Wow.
catapults up there firing down on attackers. Yeah, really very, very imposing place. And
Yeah, the walls from this period are actually incredible, aren't they? When you see them in their full glory, the few that have actually survived intact, they're very impressive.
Yes, and here at Messene, because it was so isolated, and it kind
Yeah.
of declined after the Roman era, they were never plundered, so you could still see them more or less as they were built, if somewhat, dilapidated now.
Yeah, you're pretty far away from sort of the frontier with the Goths, I suppose.
Here, for once, the Goths were not a problem.
Although I think the Goths did get to Sparta.
They
I
did.
seem to remember.
Alaric himself actually came to Sparta in 396, so before
Wow.
it was his trial run for Rome.
Yeah.
And we still
Yeah.
have the walls built around Sparta, the late Roman walls. They're built to fend off that attack.
Wow. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, he didn't get this far. Yeah, there's a big range of mountains between them. I suppose we should add the Tigertos range.
Exactly.
Impressive mountains. Yeah. I always think how the Spartans fought their war, because they would have had to surely. You've got to have like winter clothing to get over those mountains, surely.
Well, if you believe 300, they didn't wear anything besides those loincloths, and so
That's
they
what
never
I'm
had any
thinking.
problems.
Yeah. If you're naked and you're going through a big mountain, you're going to have some problems.
Yeah, in winter it must have been almost impassable, getting
Yeah.
from Laconia to Messenia, for example, because it
Yeah, you'd
was,
think so.
But I guess they found a way.
But I mean, maybe they went by sea. I don't.
Yeah, and there are a few passes farther south, but this was sort of the mountain fastness of the Messenians, so maybe it was the most inaccessible here.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose for anybody who wants to visit, this is near Kalamata,
It is, yes.
and there is an airport in Kalamata,
Ah, yeah.
and you can go there. I think you can go there quite cheap from the UK, anyway.
Yeah, I don't know where. Not from the U.S. certainly, but
Not from the
unless-
US.
Unless I'm missing something. Maybe there's like amazing budget
Unfortunately.
flight from like Detroit to Kalamata or something.
Would you
But,
want to get on it though?
Yeah, I don't know.
We've got a 50% success rate.
Yeah, it's just a big catapult actually.
Yeah. Just. Phew.
But I drove from Nafplio, and it was only about I think an hour and a half. So it's so accessible if you're
yeah.
there based there.
Yeah. So you went via.
Via Sparta, actually. So
Via
actually, I drove
via
from
Sparta.
Sparta, come to think of it.
Okay, yeah.
I'd come from Nafplio, stayed in Sparta overnight, and then
So
it was
there's
maybe an
that
hour and a half
main-
from Sparty.
There's that main highway, very good highway actually, down from
It is.
Nafplio to Sparta.
Yeah, that was I was in this part of Greece last actually, and back in 2013. It had been quite a long time, and I'd taken buses everywhere, so I just didn't notice these highways, but I think some of them are quite new and recently completed.
And often quite empty as well.
Yes, which is kind of unnerving to get into the cities with and say, oh, that's where everyone is.
It
They're
is a
all
bit,
hanging
but
out
yeah,
right here.
that's right. Yeah. Well, it really did seem to me that everybody was in Athens, and as soon as you go outside
Yes,
Athens, there's just no one. You're on
you're
these
right.
highways, and they're very good modern highways, and there's no
Yes,
one
yeah.
else there.
Yeah, it's kind of
Um,
the time to rebuild your nerves before entering the city traffic again.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. So you didn't drive through the Tigatos range then?
I drove around it, sort of.
Around it,
So,
yeah.
so coming from Sparta, I'm trying to remember. I think I went slightly, because you're going west, of course. I think I went kind of southwest. I don't recall which
So
passes,
yeah,
whatever
yeah,
the
I
line
get
of the
you.
modern highway is. And it was very picturesque. There were mountains rearing up on both sides, and a lot of
Oh,
tunnels.
it's stunning. Oh yeah, I suppose there will be tunnels now. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
maybe we just kind of bored beneath, part of the
Yeah,
range there, and that's how I got
yeah.
through.
Because what I'm just thinking, because once upon a time it was very impassable, and that was kind of the beauty of Sparta itself, because it didn't need walls, because the landscape kind of itself protected
Exactly.
them. Um, yeah.
Um,
Anything else to say about Messenia?
no, I just say that in my hat, where my hat is tourist board promoter. But it is a great place to go. So really cool site and almost unvisited.
Yeah, Greek tourist board, get in touch.
Exactly. We should be paid heavily for this. Not too late.
Well, that leads on nicely, because I'll talk about Sparta now. We'll go to
Ah, yes.
Sparta. We'll go nearby Sparta. So Sparta itself is it's a strange archaeological site, I find. I really like the place, but you go there, and if you've been to other sites in Greece, there's not that much to see. It's kind of a unassuming, smallish place, and it's interesting to think that all these wild historical events are attributed to this small little, relatively small place. And that's kind of modern Sparta in this image off in the distance there. And this is the landscape around it. So this is the Tigatos range we were just discussing. So very, very big mountains. But in the shadow of these mountains, there are many, many, many archaeological sites, and many of them date back to the Bronze Age. So I've spent a long time just kind of exploring this area, which I really like. This is one of my favourite places. So this is the tomb of Vapheio. So this is a Mycenaean tomb. It's a massive Tholos tomb, one of the biggest in Greece. And in the very early period of archaeology in Greece, this was excavated by a Greek guy called, what's his first name? Georgios Sountas. Or Christos Sountas. Sountas, anyway. And he came here, he excavated this thing, and he found some fascinating stuff. It had been looted in antiquity, as these places usually are. But he found this golden cup called the Vapheio
Yes.
cup, which is really awesome. It's very cool to see. This is in the Athens Archaeology Museum today. So anyone who's been there may have seen this in the Mycenaean room. It's filled with gold, that room. And yeah, this cup may well have originated on the island of Crete, because there's very similar art styles going on there. This sort of like thin waist, it's kind of a Cretan motif. There's a lot of symbolism on this cup, and it always makes me think what actually would have been in the tomb, because this is like the only thing of this kind of magnificence that was left there. So there would have been loads more there, but it gives you an idea of kind of state formation in Mycenaean Greece, how these kind of kingdoms, if you will, were forming, because it's kind of an obscure corner of Greece, really, and there isn't a verifiable palatial centre in this corner of Greece. Mycenae is in the Argolid, then you have like Thebes to the north of that, Pylos in Messenia, which we were just talking about, all of these palatial centres. And there kind of isn't a verifiable one yet in Laconia, but there are many candidates for the location where sort of like a preeminent king could have ruled. And this is one of them. It's by no means confirmed that a palatial centre did exist here. However, next to Vapheio is this huge, almost entirely unexcavated citadel called Paleopergi. And it's crazy. It's a crazy place. I feel like no one's visited there in 100 years. And it's not been excavated. I think it's been surveyed briefly. But really, nobody really knows what's under there. And a little bit further along, there's another one called Amyclae, which you may have heard of. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's there's a classical sanctuary there. There's a Mycenaean settlement underneath. I think there's Roman stuff on top of it, and then eventually they put a church on top. And then just in this plain of Sparta, surrounding Sparta, you've got many, many, many more citadels like this. The most famous of which would be the Menelaon, which I'm sure you know.
Yeah, that's the only site actually that you've mentioned so far that I'm at all familiar with.
So the Menelaon is, I suppose, maybe 50 years ago or so, people would think that was the palatial centre of Sparta. That was where Menelaus and Helen of the Trojan War fame, they would be associated with that place. But the picture just gets, the more archaeology is done, the more the picture gets complicated. And I think now there's like 9 or 10 different potential palatial centres in this area. So it just makes it more and more complicated, which is, I think it's awesome. So Vapheio dates to around 1500 BC, which is early, very early. It doesn't ever seem to get to the same position that Mycenae does in its prime, with its Lion Gate and its tomb, the treasury of Atreus, which is this massive, absolutely ornate tomb. This doesn't ever really get to that level, but it seems that potentially you've got quite a few different centres all competing for power in this area. Potentially later being taken over by Mycenae, if the mythological accounts are anything to go on. What else was I going to say? I was going to say something else.
Well, just interject. I mean, you mentioned before how the Vapheio cups are so riveting because it's just the residue of what was once a wonderful treasure we've lost.
That's right. Yeah, it's just a little shred that's left.
And whenever I go to, say, the treasury of Atreus, which of course was looted in antiquity, you just
same
think
thing.
It's like being in the Valley of the Kings, the tomb of Ramses II or something.
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
What did this hold?
What did it have? Yeah, because really the only things we have from the Mycenaean world are accidents. They're bits and bobs that were missed by looters, basically, or never found by looters. But that's especially rare.
And yeah, and those cups are just such wonderful examples of artistry. Where it's simultaneously stylized and naturalistic, and it's like nothing else you see in classical art, which of course comes so much later. That's
right. And it's early as well. This is super early. I mean, 1500, 1450 BC, it's the pre-palatial period. It's not, We're not quite at the era where you have these like palace centers. They kind of arise a little bit later. So something's going on. Someone is involved with Crete, it seems, from this area in Sparta. So it's like potentially, I don't know, a mercenary commander going overseas to work for the Minoans. We know that later on, Mycenaean mercenaries pop up in Pharaonic Egypt, which is really interesting because they're seen in the Egyptian records. So maybe it was happening slightly earlier in Crete. Who knows?
And we think that they conquered Crete in the 15th century BC.
That's right. Well, round about this time. This time.
So who knows if it's loot?
Who knows? Could be loot. Could be loot. Yeah. It's an interesting one, that the whole conquest of Crete thing. I mean, it's. I would argue they did conquer Crete, but it's sort of the pendulum swings back and forth. We can't say for sure, but certainly it wasn't a good time in Crete.
No.
At this point, and something happened, and then the Mycenaeans are suddenly in charge. There was also a big, there was the volcanic eruption of Thera and the tidal waves and the earthquakes that followed and all that. But it seems likely to me that, the Mycenaeans, they're not going to miss the opportunity to go and take over Crete if they can, being a warrior culture.
Yeah, I think of the Minoan Mycenaean dynamic almost like the Greeks and Romans, where there's simultaneously
Seems to
this,
be.
a cultural idealization of Minoan art, and then
That's right.
eventually a conquest of the Minoan heartland.
That's right.
But it's the fact that we don't have any accounts of this makes it so hard to parse, how much of this is emulation, how much is outright conquest, peaceful takeover that exists.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff.
And I agree with you with the Greek and Roman comparison. And if you look at the Greek and Roman comparison, it is all of those things that you said, because some of it was peaceful takeover. The Greeks weren't all, Corinth is destroyed, but not every Greek city is destroyed. Many do sort of go willingly. Well, not willingly, but
Ish.
there's sort of ish. Yeah. So it's probably a similar thing going on. Yeah. But yeah, this whole landscape is just filled with places like this, and I'm sure most other corners of Greece are as well. But this is just the one that I'm at the moment familiar with. And of course, you have these places to yourself. The only other person you might meet is a farmer, and they're always nice. Yeah. What else was I going to say?
Yeah, I would have said that, I've never explored these kind of minor Mycenaean sites around Laconia. So this is very interesting for me, too, kind of getting a tour of what's available.
But you have visited many minor classical sites.
I have. No, that's more my chronological corner of the woods.
Yeah.
But
Which is, I mean, that's, as I said earlier, I love your channel, Scenic Routes to the Past, because you're kind of you're doing this, basically, you're going to these sorts of places that, to me, I've never heard of many of them, and there's a bit more to see at the ones that you go to, though, because the classical world tends to have a little bit of above ground ruins left. The Mycenaean ruins tend to be underground, and I think that's why they are a little bit more forgotten.
Oh, undoubtedly. Yeah, that even the deepest of deep cuts in the Roman world will tend to have something monumental you can put on a thumbnail.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But
it's a bit sad though, because like these Mycenaean sites, they get completely neglected. So a lot of them aren't even protected, and the Greek Tourist Board, they tend to focus on the classical world. So the classical world tends to get more funding and things like this because it looks more interesting to the traveller.
Right, and it's so core to their own national identity too, right? That that we are
right.
the new classical Greece.
That's right, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, places like this get forgotten about.
And actually, that could be a good segue, if you don't mind, to my final site, which is Niccopolis, up in northwestern Greece.
Amazing.
And this also is kind of a forgotten site because it's a Roman era city, an enormous Roman era city, but one that's in a very out of the way part of Greece. It is so neglected.
I've never even heard of this place.
And there we go. See, so Niccopolis is founded, and of course it means Victoryville, Niccopolis, just beside the site of the Battle of Actium. This, of course, is the very famous battle fought in 31 BC between
Mark Antony,
Cleopatra, and the future Augustus, Octavian. Octavian/Augustus wins and sets, therefore, the course of Roman history. It's going to be one empire, not two, and it's going to be centered in Rome, not Alexandria. And as a token, or as a trophy of his great victory, Augustus builds a city on the site, and it's one of these synoikismoi. He brings people from all over the place, all over this part of Greece, to settle in his new city, Niccopolis. And he builds on the highest peak overlooking the new city a monument to his victory. And we're seeing the ruins of that in this picture here. That long inscription is, the letters are about 2 feet high, it's enormous, was announcing that it was the dedication of the spoils to Neptune, I think, which makes sense. Neptune and Apollo, Augustus' patron god, of the spoils taken at Actium on behalf of the Roman Republic. And above it was this stoa in which various relics from the battle were kept, things like ship's prows and cables. And in the wall below that stoa, the wall in the background of the inscription, he embedded the beaks, the rostra of the ships that he had taken in the battle.
Oh, wow.
So they took about 250 ships, which was, gargantuan, and about 24 of those rams. And these prows were huge. They were, 3 or 4 feet long, weighed several hundred pounds, were slotted into gaps in that wall. And so there have been these huge row of gleaming rams there projecting from the base of this stoa. Then there was this inscription, and then below it, the city of Niccopolis proper. So if you go to the second picture, it shows of the walls, the late walls of Niccopolis.
So
Go
this
ahead.
is incredible, right? So 250 ships, just the front parts are buried there.
Well, about 24 were actually monumentalized and put up in this monument, and they were scavenged later. The bronze rams are plucked out and reused, as bronze always is.
So archaeology hasn't confirmed all of them.
Well, we just have the sockets pretty much
Yeah,
where,
yeah.
they were placed. But still, it's
Oh, but
impressive enough.
they survive then. The sockets survive.
Yeah, yeah. If you that picture's
Wow.
not very close enough, but if you look closer, you could see the slots where they were all placed. And so, yeah, if you kind
Oh,
of look,
yeah,
there's gaps in the wall,
I see
and
what
those
you're
are the
saying.
slots for the rams. And
I'll
so it
just
was
zoom in a
part.
little bit.
Yeah, if you, I could send you another picture, I guess. But yeah, so
Oh, no,
in
that's
that
fine.
wall,
So
you can see that's where the
Yeah.
slots for the rams were.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
But
I love when you can see something from the historical sources in the
Exactly.
archaeology. That's
And it
amazing.
really is evocative. Because you go on top of that hill where the stoa was, and you could look out over the site of the battle, where it happened, the bay,
Wow.
where the ships fought.
Awesome.
And so the city became quite large. It was probably the biggest city in Greece after Corinth in the Roman
Whoa.
era. Corinth and maybe Thessaloniki. And so it covered a huge area, and only a small part has been excavated. The rest is all still olive orchards and fields. What you're looking at here is the late antique wall from the age of Justinian, more or less, or just before it, that enclosed a small part of the Augustan city. And it's still pretty impressive. This is a huge wall, modeled closely on the walls of Constantinople, which had just been built.
I was going to
up on
say
the
it looks like
Bosphorus.
the Theodosian walls.
It is, and it's only a little bit
Yeah.
newer than it and kind of modeled on it. But what you see there now today are mostly late antique ruins. The basilicas built in the reign of Justinian, which have mosaics preserved pretty well. This huge theater built for the festival, the Actian Festival, that is held every 4 years in the model of the Olympics, just below that giant monument. So we have the stadium and the theater for that festival. And the scattered remains of the city itself, which include a number of nymphaea, these monumental fountains, scattered public buildings, these big baths. But almost all of it, like I said, is unexcavated. So you just kind of walk these country lanes and you'll just stumble upon these soaring Roman ruins that are all overgrown and waiting to be uncovered and fully studied. So it's a really remarkable place. And I think, like so much what we talked about on this discussion, it's not really visited at all. It's not touristed, and a sign of how much there is still to do in Greece, both for archaeologists and for visitors.
I'm going to have to go here. This is cool.
It's a really cool site.
Yeah. 100,000 people.
Yeah, enormous. And it's only, like I said, on the most marginally way excavated. A few basilicas, a few corners. The rest of it, you just wander around, and you're walking on top of this buried metropolis.
It would still be one of the biggest cities in Greece.
It would. I mean,
100,000.
it'd be kind of like modern, like Patras, for example.
Yeah.
Maybe the scale of that.
That's the third city, isn't it, Patras?
I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
No, not half
Wild. Yeah, absolutely wild. And it looks. What time of year was this? It looks very
bad.
nice.
This is October. But
Yeah.
it's much more humid in that part of Greece than it is in
Still
the
quite
south.
green.
It is. Yeah. So even though the fall rains had started, but I think it's always pretty temperate up there.
So hang on, which bit of Greece are we in? We're in the bit that is
Y-
north of Thessaloniki.
You're northwest, so you're kind
Northwest.
of not quite as far north as Thessaloniki, but like
Okay.
go to the Albanian border and go
Yeah.
south about 80 miles, I think, and that's where it is. Corfu, kind of near Corfu.
Ah, okay, I got you. Yeah, yeah, northwest. I was thinking northeast is Thessaloniki, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, a really impressive site, and it was a lot of fun for me as a Roman historian to see, where one of the great battles of Roman history was played out and then commemorated in this very grandiloquent way.
Yes. Oh, that is fantastic. I'm trying to think. There's another place where my brain's not working today.
No
There's
worries.
what's the oh God, it's sort of near to Thebes, and there was a big battle fought, and there's a mound that was
Oh
just
yes,
filled with the soldiers who fought in that battle, and it's been
Eh,
verified archaeologically.
at
The
Chironea.
That's
Yeah,
it. The Lion of
Chironea, the Lion of
Chironea.
Chironea.
The
Yes.
Lion of Chironea. And they found a big mound that was filled with the swords and shields and helmets and things of
Yeah,
the soldiers who
that's
fell.
the sacred band, supposedly, of Thebes
That's right, the
fell
sacred
there.
band of
And
Thebes.
so they
Yeah,
found about 9/10 of the 300 of them buried there in neat rows all around the lion, which is
amazing,
pretty wild.
amazing.
Um,
Yeah, it's because to get those little bits when archaeology and history does line up, you're like,
mhm.
we are on the right track.
Exactly. Yeah. Also, often I feel like you're just,
Yeah.
because I was when I was in graduate school, I thought about becoming an archaeologist. That was my first dream, and then discovered I didn't have the patience to be an archaeologist and became a historian instead.
It
But
does require a lot of patience,
yes, and it can be, of course, wonderfully rewarding, exciting, all those
of
things.
course.
But often it's just dusting potsherds, and so I, went to the
Yes.
part where I review the findings of archaeologists, but no closer to the ground typically.
Yeah, absolutely. I did some archaeology recently and I had an amazing time. Loved it.
Oh
But
yeah.
it's when the when the I, when the clipboards come out and there's forms to fill in, and my eyes sort of glaze over and I'm like, "Ugh, I just want to
Yeah.
keep digging."
Yeah, it's not quite Indiana Jones once you're
No.
cataloging.
But the digging I enjoyed, the sorting of the finds I enjoyed, the cleaning of the finds I liked, but I didn't like the paperwork.
Oh yeah, like anything, I guess.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much.
But
Yeah.
anyway, sorry, we go on to your next site. I'm pretty much set for Niccopolis, unless you have anything else you want to go on about.
No, I will. Interestingly, my last site is very far away from here, so we're going to go to the far edge of Alexander's conquests. It kind of looks a bit similar to here. The landscape looks a little bit similar. It's another place that's up in the mountains, but this is the foothills of the Himalayas. So I just wanted to hammer home how far the Greeks really got in the 4th century and 3rd centuries BC. So here we are. This is Alexander's empire. We're going to go all the way here, almost its most easterly point. So we're further east than the Battle of the Hydaspes River, which is where the Prince Porus was defeated by Alexander. And shortly after that, this area came under the control of the Macedonian Greeks. And this is Taxila. So it's in
Yes.
modern-day Pakistan. Absolutely incredible place to visit. More people are here than they are at these Greek sites, though, interestingly. There were lots of tourists, all of them Pakistani tourists. And this is just one of the sites in the Taxila area. It's kind of like, it's a very fertile area up in the mountains, and there's, like many of these places we've been talking about, there's thousands of years of archaeology going on here. So this is just one site among many, but this is called Sirkap, and essentially it's probably already there before the Greeks arrive, but the Greeks then rule the place for a couple of hundred years. And this is one of those places where it's this weird sort of meeting of worlds, this colliding of worlds, as we briefly mentioned earlier. The almost, well, not quite Buddhist. No, I suppose it is Buddhist a little bit, but Indian, basically. India meets Greece, so it's the Indo-Greeks sort of beginnings here. As you can see, big place, Sirkap. Even before that, this is another of the archaeological sites at Taxila. So this is called the Bur Mound, and this is actually in a Persian Achaemenid settlement. So this predates Sirkap, and this is probably the one that Alexander took over, essentially.
So if I can just break in, I've
Yeah,
never
yeah,
been
go for
to
it.
Pakistan. I'm very jealous you've been to this site, because I think this is all absolutely fascinating stuff. So I know that many of Alexander's farthest easternmost conquests were given over to the Mauryaans, Chandragupta, by
They were.
Seleucus.
They
And
were indeed.
this is that part of the empire, isn't it? So it
This is
became.
that part of the empire.
It is, okay.
It becomes part of Chandragupta's empire, who he is. Is he the Buddhist one? No, it's Ashoka. who's the
Ashoka,
Buddhist.
yes.
Ashoka is the Buddhist. So Chandragupta is still essentially Hindu at this time. And then Ashoka becomes Buddhist a little bit later. Taxila does become Greek again for a little bit. So it's Greco-Bactrian. The Greco-Bactrian kingdom forms, basically, and then it's almost cut off in the east. And then there's a guy called Menander.
Oh yes.
Menander the Savior. He goes in. He launches further conquests. So about 200 years after Alexander, he launches more conquests into India, and I believe he takes over Taxila again. So it's not Greek for a long time. It's Greek for maybe a few generations here and there, but they certainly left their mark. So where's this little thing I was going to show you? Oh yeah, here we go. This is Athena.
Yes.
In the Lahore Museum in northern Pakistan. And it's just Athena, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe some slight variations to the ones that you find in Greece, but it's more or less, she's more or less there. But this is made by, Eastern artisans using local materials in Pakistan. And there's many examples of this.
It's fascinating. All like the Gandhara style art, for example, which comes later, of course. That's
Yeah.
like this.
So this
like
is
that
sort
Buddha.
of, Ashoka becomes Buddhist, and then the Greeks are still in northern India at that point. They're sort of they were Greco-Bactrians, now they're Indo-Greeks essentially, and they're sort of not necessarily always politically ruling anymore, but they're still there, and their culture is sort of merging with the Buddhist one, interestingly. And the art style of the Gandhara period is influenced a little bit by the Greeks,
Yes.
which is fascinating. So these robes are a little bit Greek. And as you mentioned earlier, there's coins where one side is Greek, the other side is Indian.
I find it so fascinating that and it's a theory.
There's one,
we
actually.
aren't sure. Yeah, there we go. With the
And he's got his elephant helmet on as
elephant
well.
headdress. Yeah.
Yeah.
A theory that it's the Buddhist iconography was originally the Buddha's icon is aniconic. He's a pair of his footsteps. He's the Bodhi tree. He's not actually a person, and that it was Greek influence that led Buddhists to begin showing him as a man. And so, in a sense, the whole Buddhist tradition of artistic tradition comes from this fusion of Greek and Indian. There in places like Taxila. And really, really wonderful stuff. I've always been fascinated by the eastern edge of Alexander's conquests, and I'm doing this tour next year actually, where I'm doing the first season of his conquest in Turkey. But I'd love someday to do the whole thing. I mean, there's some political problems in the way, but
yeah,
some issues.
Iran is the big one that I want to do. But every time I gear up to go, there seems something kicks off.
Some crisis, yeah.
And I can't go. I was close to going to Iraq actually as
Really?
well, and then a load of stuff kicked off.
And anywhere in there.
Last year actually. Yeah. I think that I hope one day it's easier to visit these places. In the last century, you could go fairly easily to Iran and Iraq.
Oh yes, the days of the hippie trail, for example, in the 70s. You just kind of glide across Iran and Afghanistan like it's nothing.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
And different world.
Yeah, I've spoken to a few people who did that back in the day. Yeah. So but we've got our places that are difficult to visit now. That are easy to visit now, but weren't then, I suppose. What else can I say about this? I mean, not a huge amount.
I'd
you carry on.
No, I was gonna say. So I'm doing this tour where I'm doing the first season of Alexander's campaigns. From pretty much Troy down to places like Miletus, and that's really cool. But it's not doesn't have the exotic allure of the Eastern conquest in places like Bactria or the Indus Valley, and the sense that they were so far from home, several thousand miles from home, and still commissioning statuettes of Athena, for example, and building these occasional Greek style buildings. It really is just a wonderful dislocation.
In some
almost.
ways, when you're there, in some ways it feels like you're at the edges of the world, but then in other ways it does feel quite similar. It feels like the Greeks could be quite happy there, particularly here where it's up in the mountains. The temperature's nice. It's very green. Yeah, there's a fantastic museum here as well, the Taxila Museum, where they've basically just stockpiled, I think, everything from the area, and they got quite good security there, so I think it's quite safe. But there's thousands of coins, and the coins are absolutely fascinating. I love obscure coin from the other side of the world, where it's a sort of a lost dynasty, and there's not much else left besides the coins, and you get to see how they depicted themselves.
Yeah,
So
and
I've got
that's so often the
I've got
case in this
a
part of the
couple here
Greek
actually.
world. I have a couple of these coins in my own collection.
Oh,
And then
amazing.
that's Menander there, isn't it? I
That's
think.
Menander, yeah. So
Yeah.
he looks a bit like he's portraying himself as kind of dignified. He's not necessarily portraying himself as a warrior,
Hmm.
which is
Well,
interesting.
and he's the one who became Buddhist, isn't he? The
Yes,
Menander. Hmm.
yes, I believe so. Anyway, I think there's a.
Yeah, I don't know
It
if we
might
know
not be a.
that, but we assume it's the case. So,
We assume it. Yeah, exactly. He looks a little bit Buddhist there in a way. Because I'm not.
austere.
Have I got a previous one? Oh no, I don't think I put it on. But many of these sort of Greco-Bactrian Indo-Greek guys, they portray themselves with a big helmet on,
Hmm.
and
Exactly.
they're very much they're kitted out for war. But he doesn't necessarily look like he's going to war.
Yeah, he just has the ribbon of victory, but what kind of victory it is.
Mm. Yeah, here we go. So this is the Indo-Greeks. This was
Hmm.
So Taxila did come briefly under their control again, and then they are sort of pushed back, and the leadership anyway are taken out by invaders from the steppe.
Hmm.
And then the Kushan Empire forms,
Yes.
which is super interesting in itself. The Kushan Empire.
Oh yeah, and it's this kind of weird and wonderful fusion of so many cultural elements, which are
That's right.
Indian, Greek, Central Asian, all coming together.
That's right. Yeah, because there's a little bit of Greek in the
Yeah,
Kushans.
their
A little bit
coins
of
are still
Greek.
Greek legends at first, which is really really.
Yeah.
I actually have a coin of one of the Kushan. It's Kanishka I have.
Oh,
Yeah, really cool
amazing.
stuff.
Yeah, he's the famous guy. I think
He is.
Kanishka.
Yeah, yeah. He's the first
Yeah.
one.
He's the one of the great Kushans, I think he's known as.
Hmm.
Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my knowledge of the Kushans kind of ends right about there, so I can't tell you a whole lot more about like
It's one of these
dynastic
empires that
history.
I've always wanted to learn more about,
Hmm.
and I will one day. But
Yeah, that would
it
be a
really
fascinating.
it takes years to get really stuck into a topic, doesn't it? So it's like you got to pick.
Yeah, well, when you do your Kushan video, I'm all over it. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm kind of jealous of you actually because you've picked your thing
well,
and you stick to
it's
it.
good and bad. You're boxed in then, right? Because
Yeah,
I know what I'm doing in theory because I have this training in it. But at the same
yeah,
time, I'm also if I do something else, it's like, what's he doing? Talking about the Kushans or whatever. He's a Roman dude. Get back in your butt.
yeah,
Get in your
yeah,
lane, bro. Um,
yeah.
so yeah,
So because I can do anything technically.
it's a wonderful
I
freedom.
haven't boxed myself in. Freedom, yes, but then it takes a long time to learn a new
Oh, of course,
subject,
right?
and I try to do it as in depth as possible because I don't want to
Hmm.
do a shallow sort of take on something
No,
as
you
much as
do
I
great,
can.
great long
But
form videos. So I've always hung in like that 10 to 20 minute range. I've been
yeah,
afraid to tackle the hour long video for all kinds of reasons.
well they're good, but they take a long
No,
time,
I have no doubt.
long time, long time. But I do dabble in the shorter ones now because
Hmm.
I've got my own self-titled one. I suppose a little bit like your scenic routes to the past. I've
Right,
got
yeah, kind of travel focused.
it's fun to experiment and try. I mean, like this, for example. These are the
Hmm.
sorts of things that I do on the Pete Kelly channel.
Right.
And also, I've been asking everybody this: what do you think about AI? Because this is
Uh,
doing things like this.
hmm.
You may be able to tell I've started it this year. This is kind of my attempt to, I guess, not combat AI, but just to try and put
Reassure
something out
people.
there. Yeah, just try and put something out there that's human made, and it's
Yeah,
authentic. I suppose it's a real conversation.
I think like all YouTube creators, I despise the flood of AI produced slop that has,
Mm,
kind of surged over so much of history YouTube, where people don't,
yeah,
they'll just say, tell some, AI, make a video about X or Y. The AI makes the visuals, does the voiceover, writes the script, does everything, and that's it. And it's not a good video, but it drowns out the human-made stuff in so many ways.
yeah,
So I, of course, just resent that because it means that content that's made by people who have put all the time and effort into researching, writing, doing the stuff that we do, it gets ignored unjustly.
Have you noticed a drop in views or not?
I have. I don't know if that's my own fault for choosing weird topics. It might be, frankly, but it's definitely my views have been on a slow decline, despite my subscriber numbers inching up. So it's not a
I've
good
noticed
trend.
the same thing. I
Yeah.
don't think it's to do with you picking weird topics. I think people like the topics that you pick because they're not weird, but they're things that think outside the box. I think that's really
Hopefully.
good. But
Well,
I
thank you.
think that I completely agree with you. I think that videos that people like you make are drowned out, and it's a terrible shame. So it's like a piece of gold amidst just a load of shit.
Essentially, you got to dig for it, and no one wants to dig through shit,
Yeah,
right? You know.
yeah, and then it's hard to know which one is the good one, and I think it
Exactly.
does it turns people off the whole platform. I think
It
I've
does.
spoken to a few friends now, and they've said I don't really do YouTube anymore because it's gone weird,
Yeah,
which
and
isn't
I
it's
know.
not great.
No, it's not for people who make their living on YouTube. It's
it's
just
not
really
great.
discouraging.
Yeah.
And I know that YouTube's taken some steps recently to I think they don't monetize AI produced videos anymore, which is great, but it's probably too late, and that there's just so much
Yeah.
out there already. And
Yeah.
it's hard to tell sometimes what is AI and what's not. Actually, I'm accused
is.
often of being
It is.
AI because I use a
So-
very level tone in my videos.
So am I.
Oh yeah.
So am I. Yeah, it really frustrates me.
It's extremely frustrating.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, this AI sucks. I'm like, no, my voice sucks. The AI is okay.
That's just me, man. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just me, yeah.
Ju-
Direct the hate where it belongs.
yeah, exactly. But then I get enough hate for my voice anyway. So
Exactly, yeah. No, it's great. It's great.
yeah.
So anyway,
Ah.
well, this is wonderful. Thanks so much for inviting me on to this live stream. I've learned a lot actually about these sites. I do, if at all, as a name. And yeah, that was fun connecting with a fellow history YouTuber.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to speak to everybody else who's doing what we're doing, because there's not a huge amount of us.
No, the few, the proud. History YouTubes.
Yeah. So what's next for you? Where are you going next?
Oh, well, I'm leading these tours as I mentioned. So I have this one that follows Alexander across Western Turkey. That's in next May. And then I'm doing another tour in Roman Spain, actually, the Roman ruins of Spain.
Oh, amazing.
And then in fall, I'm going back to Egypt. Roman Egypt will be my next thing over there. And then I have yet another tour around the Bay of Naples. But video-wise, actually, I'm going to try and break out a little bit from my Roman box, a little more ancient Greek stuff, for example.
Great.
And maybe even dabble a little bit with some Egyptian things. But we'll see how that all goes if I, dare that, vast leap into a different civilization.
Yeah. And then
But,
one day you can do the Kushans.
Exactly. That's the grand goal of my career here. 10 years from now.
One day. I spotted as well that you've written a book recently.
Yes, yeah. So I have 3 books. The first one is the unreadable monograph I mentioned before, my dissertation. Don't read that. But then actually behind me, my first book for popular audiences was Naked Statues, Fat Gladiators, and War Elephants, which is sort of a Q&A style
Love it.
book. And then I have its sequel there behind me, that blue book. The second sequel to this is coming in next spring. And then I have another book, my 5th book, which is about the Roman frontiers. I had this journey on the frontier 2 years ago for 3 months, going from Britain to Bulgaria, just following the northern frontier of the Roman Empire. And so talking about
wow.
that journey and its kind of echoes in modern, the frontiers echoes in modern Europe. That's the topic of that book.
So this is a journey that you did.
I did, yes,
amazing.
in 2023.
So you travelled from Hadrian's Wall? No, well, the Antonine
Yes.
Wall.
Yeah, all the way to the Black Sea.
Black Sea.
I didn't walk it. That'd be really impressive. But I did do the whole thing.
Did you drive or did the train? Or
It was a mix of things. I had
Mix
rental
of things,
cars
yeah.
for a lot of it. I did some trains where it wasn't practical to have a car. But it was a wonderful way to see a part of the Roman world I never had before. I've always been so Mediterranean focused.
yeah.
And it
I love
was-
the northern frontier. I think it's great. But there's
Yeah,
some
it's a
great
different world.
places in Germany and
Exactly.
and you go across to the sort of the Balkan countries and yeah.
Yeah, tons in Serbia, which I knew about vaguely, but hadn't visited until I did this grand tour. So that's the next. As I'm finishing that book right now, that book will be out in probably late summer of next year.
So in this book, do you say I did this? Is it a different style?
It is first person, which is weird for a
amazing.
historian to finally venture into autobiographic stuff.
Yes, I've dabbled in that a little bit myself on my Pete Kelly channel, and I quite like it actually. It's quite fun.
It's liberating a little bit to have opinions on
you can
things.
you can have an opinion, and you can discuss. You can mention little tidbits of people that you met and things that you got up to, and I'm going to read that book. That sounds great.
Oh, well, great. Yeah, I'll be sure to plug
That's
it on
the
your channel or something
Yeah,
when
yeah.
it comes out. But
That's the sort of history book that I like. Yeah.
excellent.
Nice. Well, actually, just before I end the stream, I've realised I'm so bad at this. I haven't looked at the chat at all. Do we
Oh,
have any questions?
oh yeah. I actually forgot there was a chat. I said there's a
I
little icon
completely
here with
forget.
44 messages. So I guess
I'm
there were
so
questions.
I'm so bad at this. Do we have any questions?
Oh, oh yeah, yeah. There definitely is. Well, hopefully they're patient people who ask these questions.
Yes. What got you guys into the path of history YouTubing?
All
Um,
right. You go first, please.
well, for me, it was just because I didn't want to become a teacher, basically. I had a history degree, then I did my history masters, and essentially I wanted to do something in the heritage field that wasn't teaching. Um, and at the time, everything to work in a museum, you needed something on your CV. So I needed to do volunteer work, but I couldn't afford that because I was skint, I was broke. So instead of doing that, I just worked day jobs and I did this on the side, and it was just to get something on my CV. And then suddenly one day YouTube said, "You can monetize this," and I said, "What?" And realised that it was making more than my minimum wage day job. So I quit the same day
Oh wow.
and went all in. And then I haven't looked back, and that was 7 years ago.
Oh yeah. I have a similar story in that I did my PhD and then I taught for 2 years at the University of Michigan. But I was not a professor; I was a lecturer. I was,
Yeah.
hired from year to year, and I couldn't get a tenure track job. The market, I'm sure in the UK also, is dying, honestly, for ancient
Yes.
history, the classics.
Yeah.
And so I made a deal with myself that if I couldn't find a tenure track job, I was going to leave and do something else. And what that something else would be, I hadn't decided yet when I left, honestly. So I kind of kicked around a bit. I tutored. I tried to get into the travel industry, which I did eventually in a roundabout way. But I started YouTube when I began to write this book, Naked Statues. This is in 2020. And initially, it was just going to be to promote that book. I never dreamed it would be a going concern on its own right.
Same. Yeah. It
Right.
was. I didn't think that you could do this.
No, no, I never thought it was a possibility. And then I released videos for almost 2 years. Then I had one video eventually that just out of nowhere went viral. And that
Same.
was the same deal, right? And that's like you had this moment of realization where, wait a minute,
Yeah.
I can
Hang
do
on.
something with this.
Yeah.
This whole
Yeah.
YouTube thing,
I'm sure it was the same for you. You were just doing it because you loved it, right? Like I was just.
basically. And
Yeah.
it was a
And I
hobby.
think that's right. Yeah. I think anybody who wants to do YouTube, you've got to love it, and you've got to treat it as if you will never make any money from it. I wasn't even thinking about money for years, and then suddenly,
Right. And I have to
so,
remind myself of that sometimes. No, no, because
yeah.
often, you have these moments where videos don't do well or you get
Oh yeah,
discouraged by the whole process. It's like, well, wait a
that's
minute.
right.
This is still something I enjoy. I'm still doing something that I'm lucky.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah. I feel very lucky. Yeah. I mean, yeah, and I think I'm hopeful for the future. I think the AI situation should normalize.
I hope
I
so.
hope. I hope. Um, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, fingers crossed.
Do we? Yeah. I think. Any other questions? Can
There
you
were some
see?
questions towards the beginning, I think. Going to the beginning of the chat. Let me see. Some interesting comments. Okay. Yeah, I didn't notice any other questions, but I might have just been scrolling through too quickly.
Did they have established standard units like the yard,
Oh,
acre, and fathom?
it was very city by city. Every city had its own weights and measures, basically, and there actually were official. In the algorithm, might be official weights and measures. Like, this is what our local pound is. The Romans later on had, a single Roman foot, for example, but even that varied quite widely in practice from place to place.
Every polis was quite different.
Exactly.
And on that note, I think we can call it a day.
I think so too. Well, thanks so much for inviting me, Pete. I had a great time.
Well, thanks for coming, and thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next